I would really rather see us keep consent agenda items at a lower number. This is kind of new in the 3.5 years I've been here. So I do have 3 others. When you'd like me to present that, Mr. Chair.
And what I'm going to do is when we do the consent agenda, I am going to read these off in line items so that if someone has a question on that particular one, any of us have a particular question, we can ask that because it is a little long. I will let you know in advance, though, as liaison to the roadmaster. I've spent a lot of time with Mr. Christensen. His people are doing a lot of really good work right now. As you probably know, we're getting some contracts now with our chip and seal and those kind of things. So a lot of this has been gone over. It's in his budget to do this, and a lot of it is partially funded through, getting money back on a lot of this stuff. So,
well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to, in hearing your comments there, I think it'd be wise then to pull out item 6V, W, and X, and have that open discussion for the public.
Which numbers again?
6V, W, and X. Those are rather large Caterpillar expenditures, purchases, I should say, ones that can worth $2.
Well, when I'll tell you what, as I just stated, when I read the consent agenda off, I'm going to stop at the end of each one, or just a brief pause. And then when we get to V, W, and X, maybe perhaps at that time we can ask Mr. Christensen to just come up if you have a question for him on this.
Yeah, my preference would be to vote on those each individually.
Okay.
But we don't have, I think the way you've structured there is acceptable to me. I just want to make sure that the public at the right time hears what our thoughts, possible concerns are, and just bridging those subjects.
Okay. Is that all you had, sir?
That is, thank you.
Ms. Schmelzer?
Okay. So if we're going to pull 6C to a later time, we're also going to have to pull 6L. The master payroll is based on the wage study, and it has to be adopted prior to the first payroll, which is the 8th. So I know we're going to pull it later and discuss the wage study, so we'll also have to delay 6L until after that wage study discussion.
Understand, Mr. Chair.
And then just to note that 6D, E, F, and G, those ands, 11A, B, are based on that wage adjustment. So we should also pull those until after that discussion.
Okay, so we want to, let's make sure we're all clear on this. We're going to take 6C off and move it to 7. It would be D because the Wild Rivers thing is going to move up. So it'll be 7D. We will move 6C to.
Could I make a suggestion that might streamline all this?
Yes.
If we approve the consent agenda after our discussion on the wage study, I think that might be a little easier to handle.
I agree.
Okay, so we'll hold off on the consent agenda.
Yeah, just make that as number 8 or...
Well, how are you going to address the items on the consent agenda?
Well, that would be part of the wage study, I think.
Yeah. So just a comment on the number there. Because the Roadmaster stuff was all approved in the budget, that's why it went on consent calendar, because it was all already approved via the budget process. So my amendment is item 7C, the IGA with state parks. We do have Larry Becker from State Parks here, who has told us he was going to show up today. We found out yesterday. So we're going to move that, if we can, we'd move that to the first discussion action item, since he doesn't have to sit through the other items.
Good.
All right, so we're going to move him from 7C to 7A.
Right.
This looks like a 6-year-old's play sheet in kindergarten.
Might be because we didn't have a meeting last week.
Anything further?
No.
I move to approve the agenda as amended, and hopefully we'll be able to get through it with all the amendments.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Aye.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
As we can see, we have a very full schedule today. We're going to have some public comments. I would ask that we keep those to the 3-minute mark, please. Mary Rowe? Good morning, Ms. Rowe.
Good morning.
Can somebody move her microphone?
No, I'm, well, yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Mary Rowe. Our county government is in a time of transition as our Director of Operations, Julie Schmelzer, is leaving. Julie brought educational credentials, experience, and know-how to our little county that we may not see again for quite some time. Under her management, our county government increased substantially in size, cost, influence, and power. I believe that Julie functioned more as a county administrator, though, than as a Director of Operations. And I think that too much was changed too quickly, and that some of it has been done in ways that did not or do not best serve us. If Julie contracts with us to finish up some projects from Wisconsin, I hope that any such process is not too extensive nor expensive. There has been too much control and micromanaging since this administration started in 2019. County employees have said that they feel more intimidated now than when under Huxley. Our seasoned department heads and electeds have not been valued as the experts that they are. I think that we have great electeds at our second tier of leadership, our sheriff, county clerk, county assessor, and our county treasurer. Our treasurer, who withdrew after filing for re-election under an atmosphere of criticism and pressure coming from your offices. Some concerns I have are, the Citizens Revenue Task Force was not on the county site, and no applications were submitted by the deadline. Thus, accessibility and transparency were undermined. The consent agenda has been overused, not allowing enough discussion of some issues to be voted upon. Some violations by a county commissioner were not dealt with in a timely enough manner. The monthly coordination meetings that our county director and a county commissioner have been having at the Gold Beach City Hall with city council persons, city managers, and court commissioners, which exclude the public and have not been attended by the press, can have the consolidation of power as a byproduct, whether intended or not. I would like to see the Director of Operations positions eliminated and for there to just be an office manager who would be chosen not only by the BOC, but also by our department heads. I would also like to ask that when you go into executive session for unspecified amounts of time, that the tourism commercials not be so long, with there being no way to know when the meeting will start again. This affects our access to watch the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie Vodika Hunter. Did I do okay?
There's two ways to pronounce that name, and they say in the Bodica side of the family is a good side, the Bodica side of the family is a bad side. So
Bodica.
Any way is good. You did a great job. The point is that was my son's last name, and this talk is about July being Bereaved Parents Awareness Month. So I'm Connie Hunter, proud citizen of the city of Brookings in South Curry County. A 2019 study found that 57% of Americans are grieving the loss of someone close to them in the last 3 years. So every other person you see is grieving. COVID-19 is bringing loss to many more American doorsteps, and everyone's personal grief journey will be different. July is Bereaved Parents Awareness Month. As a parent who has lost a child, I know how lived experience and anecdotal information can provide a lifeline for those who are in deep emotional pain from losing a child. Jason was my only child. My son, Jason, at 13 years old, Jason Christopher Vodka, was diagnosed with end-stage renal disease. He had the most beautiful green eyes, I can tell you that. He was a fighter through 18 hospitalizations and 13 surgeries for metal stabilizing bars, leg braces and casts, and a kidney transplant in which I was the live donor. Through all of this, Jason never lost his infectious laugh. Jason's birth defects were very high likely caused by his father's Agent Orange exposure during his military service during Vietnam. When a person loses a family member, they become vulnerable. That is especially true of parents who lose a child. Without the support I needed in both talk therapy and group therapy, in peer-mentor relationships, and a gold star mentored me with my grief, I would not still be standing here today. During my most vulnerable times, I received much love and support, but also on this long journey, I experienced the cruelty of a predator who made things even more difficult. Some of you know pieces of that story. The heaviest burden that I have ever faced was the day I had to make the decision to turn off Jason's life support. Another grieving family member told me that I had taken the choice out of God's hands. Talk about survivor's guilt. Survivor's guilt has been a struggle because we keep losing the young ones in my family. That is my trigger. My nephew Kyle was killed in Iraq, you know that story. A niece by marriage who died of kidney disease, also related to her father's Agent Orange exposure. A nephew by marriage who died in a motorcycle accident and three days before joining the Marines. And just most recently, 4 young family members who were lost in a car crashes, aged 35, 16, 7, and 5. Processing grief is never easy, but I promise you, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and there are people like me who are willing to tell you and remind you how valuable you are. And my son and I used to share the song Badlands, Bruce Springsteen, and there was a part in that song that said, "It ain't no sin to be glad you're alive." And when I have a bad day, I listen to that song, and it ain't no sin to be glad you're alive.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. And I know you'll understand these 2 words, Semper Fi. So,
Thank you.
next we have Gordon Clay. Good morning, Mr. Clay.
Good
Sorry.
morning. For the record, my name is Gordon Clay from Brookings, Oregon. July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. As a mental health organization, the Curry County Suicide Awareness and Prevention Council is using this county platform each month to break the silence around mental health in all of its forms. We are committed to a process of change, knowing that a long-term sustained efforts are needed to improve access to culturally informed, evidence-based, quality mental health care. We believe that every family, youth, adult, and community should have resources and knowledge to discuss mental health concerns, connect with support, and have access to effective mental health care and suicide prevention resources. We know that there is much work to do. This is a reminder that we are all have a role to play, and invite individuals, community organizations, leaders to join us in the efforts to create long-lasting changes in mental health equity, including the prevention of suicide among underrepresented communities. We look forward to learning from and evaluating the voices of experts in the field. We hope you will join us as we strive to create a culture that's smart about mental health for everyone. July is also Bereaved Parents Awareness Month. Bereavement from suicide results in a difficult and complex adjustment for the surviving friends and family members. It is associated with more intense grief reactions than death by homicide, accidental death, natural anticipated death, and a natural unanticipated death. Everyone's pathway through grief is different. Some grieve in silence, others mourn with peers, join support groups, or vent on online forums and social media. Don't know what to say? Words are not always needed. A hug, a kiss, a touch, a smile, each goes a long way. And remember, there is no time limit on grief. July 16th, the FCC will vote on final rules to establish 988 as a new nationwide 3-digit phone line for suicide prevention and mental health crisis counseling. This announcement comes at a time when suicide in America is at epidemic levels, particularly for vulnerable groups like veterans, LGBTQ youth, and Black teens. Note, it is not a hotline. It's a warm line. It gives mental health resources to help people. Furthermore, 90% of Gen Z, 6 to 23-year-olds, and the majority of Gen Y, 24 to 38 millennials, in crisis won't call a crisis phone line. They text. So 988 isn't going to help them. However, there is a crisis text line 741-741 for those who prefer texting to talking. It is there to help anyone at any level of crisis 24/7, free and confidential. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to also take this moment to thank you for your work on that grant. In case we don't get to talking about that per se.
Thank you.
Great job on that.
And I appreciate the county for getting there.
All right, next we are going to move to our presentations.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a real quick comment. I'm just incredibly grateful for our public comments and what we just heard, and I'm just processing, and the reminders are heart-stopping, heartwarming, and we just have some incredible citizens in this county. Thank you. That's all for now.
Presentations would be 5A, COVID-19 update. Ms. Ward? Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, everybody. Sheree Ward, Public Health Administrator for Curry County. I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to give you a real quick update in regards to COVID-19, where we stand as of today, and then a real brief update of what public health has been doing since this whole thing has started, so we can iron out, because there's not just myself, I do have a team, and so they've been working very hard and vigorously on this. Currently today, statewide, actually currently as of yesterday, numbers are still being composed. I'm in here, so I can't do the numbers at this moment. But statewide yesterday were 8,656 cases of COVID-19, 207 deaths, 8,265 positive cases, and 228,978 negative cases, for a total of 243,000 cases in statewide. I will tell you right now, Curry County, I'm still happy to announce, Curry County is still at 7 recovered cases, 0 active, 0 hospitalizations, and 0 deaths. Testing is still being performed. I can tell you that at this moment. Last 48 hours has been extremely challenging. Yesterday, Governor Brown announced last night that the executive order that she had extended to July 6th has now been extended for the next 60 days to September 4th. So her executive order for state of emergency has been extended till then. As of 2 days ago, she did announce that a statewide face covering is to go into effect for all of counties, including Curry County. So we are faced with that as well. The decision for that on her end is to stop the spread of COVID-19. Like I said, I will go ahead and state that practicing social distancing, washing hands, and being very respectful of each other's spaces definitely does help with the spread of COVID-19. So I think we all need to be aware of that when we're out and about. So I did want to at least bring that to your attention. Where we go from here regarding face coverings in the government sector and requirements is going to be a board decision. How you want to handle that in regards to employees. If anybody does need to know what the face covering guidance are, you can go ahead and reach them and look at them on the governor's website. And complaints on face masks, we've been funneling complaints as well when they do come in for restaurants, anything. But the actual investigation and complaints will also be handled, and enforcement will be handled by OSHA. So public health will be funneling some of those calls, but also OSHA will be actually doing the enforcement issues in regards to that. So that's what I have on the update of COVID-19. I was just recently yesterday, we are still participating in what we call the Hospital Incident Command System. Their HICS call on a weekly basis. We have kind of streamlined down a little bit in regards to that. So that's where we stand on COVID-19. Any questions on that, or do you want me to just give you a quick update about public health as well?
Commissioner Boyce?
I don't need to go first if you...
No, go ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned the ruling the executive order the governor made late last night. Would you mind giving the public and us as well just a little more detail on that?
Well, in regards
if you have any.
Well, all I did was just print the governor's order from June 30th, press release that came out. Governor today extended declaration of state of emergency regarding COVID-19 for additional 60 days until September 4th. And issued when I first declared the emergency due to the coronavirus, there were 14 cases of COVID-19 in Oregon. Today there have been over 8,600 cases, with over a quarter of those cases identified in previous 2 weeks of June. Now, mind you, a lot of this, and we're still dealing with here in Curry County, we are low there, but a lot of these are in the big, huge areas, as well as they did have a seafood outbreak, and they were doing targeted testing in regards to seafood outbreaks in Lincoln County as well. So just stated that while the hospitalizations remain relatively low, we have seen how rapidly those numbers can climb, and sadly 207 Oregonians have lost their lives. Without a doubt, COVID-19 continues to pose a real and present threat to Oregonians and communities across the state, from Malheur County to Umatilla to Lincoln. So, like I stated, they did do target testing in those areas, and they did have a major outbreak. So right now, I can tell you with Curry County, we currently have 5 contact tracers. We do, when anything comes in, we are receiving test results on a daily basis, constantly. My stack is like this. And as we get a positive case, we will be notified directly from the hospital or the provider or the lab in regards to a positive case, and then the community.
We're going to interrupt you, sorry.
Jenna, could you stand by, please? Yes. Thank you.
So the community would be updated if we had a COVID-19 positive case in regards to here, but currently we do not, and so we have been working those cases as they do come in. We do have people who may be under monitoring, who may provide with symptoms, and they are to self-isolate, but have been tested, and so that's where we stand right here for Curry County.
I just want to say also, I was on the phone conversation with the governor yesterday when she made her announcement, and I on several occasions tried to ask her to look at the rural counties, as we are a little different than the large counties are, and the undue restraints that this is putting on our local businesses. And my question was never answered. It was always questions about things that didn't really seem pertinent to the issue. So I was rather surprised that she didn't answer the question, because there are a lot of rural counties in Oregon. But to have OSHA and all this coming in, to shut down some of these small businesses when we're, you know, the people in this county are working so hard
They are.
to minimize and control the surroundings of everyone. It was pretty desponding. I also wrote a letter to Merkley's office and Wyden's office as well yesterday about the same thing. So I'm just really kind of disappointed because, as we all know, it's, I mean, even our state parks, why can't we start to open up some of the state parks to take the load off of our county parks and let everyone spread out a little bit more? So these are things that rural counties are facing right now that I would like to see our government work a little harder to address and separate rural counties from municipal counties.
So agreed, and I will let you know, I am on conference calls, and I do address those issues on those conference calls. I did state to our acting health officer had asked me in regards to some questions. I said, you can let the governor know that what applies in Multnomah County doesn't really apply in rural counties because we are different dynamics. And the one thing I pride myself on is being here in Curry County. I really believe people are coming to our area for a reason, and I know there's a lot of different avenues of thought of people coming in bringing COVID. I will tell you, as long as you're practicing social distancing and respecting each other, if somebody, and I think that's something that we all need to remember, if somebody is not really wearing a mask, we have to have compassion and empathy regarding that, because there might be some medical issues. There might be some reasons why somebody is not wearing a mask. And on the other retrospect, when somebody is wearing a mask, not to be hard on them or anything. We all have to take accountability for our own safety as well as our health and well-being, and having some compassion for each other in the community. This is some trying times we've got here in Curry County as well as statewide and worldwide. And I just hope that everybody remembers that we're all on the same team. All on the same team. We have a lot to gain from this, and my heart goes out to our communities and everybody who's struggling right now. If I had my way, I would hope that we could turn back the hands of time and not have COVID. But unfortunately, it's something that we're going to see for a little bit, and I think as long as we mitigate and keep going forward and acting with due respect and with each other, and I think maybe we can kind of conquer this. I will, on another positive note, I am going to streamline a little bit off COVID and just give you a real quick update about public health, because our team isn't just of me. I will tell you here recently, what public health does is we also handle the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program, communicable disease immunization program. We participate weekly in HICS meetings, as well as it's a trying time right now. We are in the middle of fiscal year reports and budgets due to the state on top of all of this. This was kind of interesting that we ended up with this emergency when we're in the middle of this. We have had actually active meetings with preparing for wildfire season with Coos Forest Protective. We have had meetings regarding preparing for an outbreak should COVID-19 hit during fire season if we were to have a catastrophe here. We are also myself is meeting with the new school superintendent to review how things are going to look in the future for schools. We don't know, but at least we're going to try and get some plannings going. I can tell you that public health staff, environmental health, WIC coordinator, emergency manager, all ended up in a contact tracing training, so they are completely contact trained. WIC offices, just so we are clear about WIC office hours for WIC are 8:30 to 5 by appointment only. Due to the COVID-19, the state has put a waiver in for the WIC offices not to see clients firsthand because they have to weigh babies and have hands-on. So they are actually doing appointments by only, and on the other positive side, they do have a farmer's market and have participated in farmer's market in Brookings and Gold Beach, and they have one here in Port Orford today. They hand out vouchers for checks for clients who are compliant with WIC. They get $28 per person who can redeem at farmer's market. Also, WIC has been helping in logistics with PPE, resource updating, and liaison and participating in community meetings, so with the community every Thursday. Environmental health is actively working on restaurants regarding licensing, plan reviews, restaurants compliances, speaking with the public regarding any questions they may have, as well as checking into drinking water complaints. So that is what public health has been doing on top of this response. So I hope that the community understands that we are out there, we do have a presence, and there is a lot on our plate, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know you've been here nonstop, and both you and Commissioner Pash mentioned the public support, the public effort, the public commitment, and here we have not had a new case for 36 days. I remember when we got the first case, because we thought we might actually slide into home base and not have that extra, or that case that came. So there's a tribute there to everybody in this room's efforts, including yours, of course. I'm highlighting that because we may be looking at a second surge at some point. I got my fingers crossed. I'm not predicting that, of course, and yet every day is a little bit different. Commissioner Pash, also I appreciate that you mentioned rural counties. If you look at Douglas, Coos, Curry, Josephina, Jackson, there's been such minimum hospitalizations, very low numbers, no deaths certainly. And so we have a call into the governor's office tomorrow, the District 4, AOC, 5 counties that I just mentioned. And boy, I'll tell you, between Commissioner Roberts in Jackson, Commissioner Morgan in Josephine County, and Commissioner Cribbins in Coos County, they are very unhappy because the mask requirement came without notifying us, which was our last meeting, I think last Wednesday afternoon, a week ago. So we're feeling that tension that you mentioned, and I don't mind wearing a mask. It's awful hard to talk sometimes, but my wife says, well, just keep the mask on. You know? But anyway, I'm watching out. We're watching out for our county, and you also mentioned, Commissioner Pash, the businesses, the effort they're making, and when you start talking about OSHA coming in to do, prospective inspections, it isn't going to take much to push some of our restaurants out of business, and so I'm just very, very concerned and have every intention of watching that absolutely every day. Thank you again for your work, and thank you for the reference to all the departments that you're working with and the steady progress moving forward. Thank you, Administrator Ward.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you, and I hope we can make it all through this.
All righty.
Thank you, Cherie. Good work.
A lot of work. Appreciate it. All right, next we're going to do a presentation. We're moving 7D up to 5B, and that is Wild Rivers Coast Forest Collaborative, Shasta Agnes. Commissioner Boyce.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Chair. This is, welcome Jenna Knobloch. I mentioned outgoing director of the Wild Rivers Coast Forest Collaborative, and I didn't see Mr. McMaster here when I first referenced him a bit ago. I think you were here, so we're going to ask him maybe to join in a little bit. The analogy or the comparison I use on Eastern Oregon counties, and either Mr. McMaster or Ms. Knobloch can comment on this, but when I first became commissioner, we were really encouraged to participate in the collaborative effort. And frankly, Curry County has not had a lot of successes over the years. The Eastern Oregon counties, in talking to those commissioners, they see it as a real bright spot. Their forests are different, and yet the 3 years or 2.5 years that I've actually been on the collaborative, I've seen some really good progress. And so the Shasta-Agnes proposal is something we're very proud of. It has a very diverse group that has worked on this, and we have one meeting a month, and it's fairly consistently and faithfully attended. And so, Jenna, thank you again. I'm going to have to grab the microphone or the presentation mouse here, but thank you for calling in. I know you'd have been here if you could have attended, but we're very happy to have you call in. Can you hear us okay?
Yes. Can all of you hear me okay?
Pretty good. We have we have Staff Jesuit, Council Huddle, Commissioner Gold, Commissioner Pash, myself, and Director of Operations, Julie Smelser. So I'm going to sneak behind her and grab the microphone here. Maybe you can grab it for me.
You just want the mouse.
Welcome again.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. Hopefully, at some point in the future, I can come and attend in person. Yeah, so I'm just going to give a high-level presentation about and touching on sort of some of the regional context of Forest Collaborative, Wild River Coast Forest Collaborative, and Shasta-Agnes. Also give a little update on the Collaborative Landscape Restoration Program, which is kind of a mouthful. A lot of people call it CFLRP for short. It's kind of a funny acronym. Just to introduce myself, my name is Jenna Knobloch. I am Forest Program Manager at Sustainable Northwest, which is a nonprofit based up here in Portland. But I've got a background in consensus-based approaches to natural resource challenges and rural economic development. I was a rural studies fellow when I was at Oregon State University, where I got my master's degree. I facilitated Wild Rivers Coast for about a year and have been an active participant ever since. We recently hired Sarah Young, who was unable to make it today, but she's been coordinating and lives there locally in the Crystal River area, and she's very excited to engage with all of you guys moving forward. So, yeah, I guess that's just sort of an overview. I work with forest collaboratives around the region, and I also work with the Oregon Prescribed Fire Council. So I thought I'd just start with the basics. I'm going to go to slide 2 there.
You ready for the
collaboratives are,
Are you ready for the next slide? I want to keep up with you here.
Yep. So going from the first intro slide to what is a forest collaborative, they're place-based groups with the goal of building consensus on challenging forest management issues. And that's obviously a very ambitious goal. There's sort of a wide range of forest collaboratives throughout Oregon. Some of them have very formal structures where they, follow Robert's Rules of Order and, very structured. And some are not formal at all. They're just more based on going into the woods and having really good conversations and trying to build relationships. I would say Wild Rivers Coast kind of falls in the middle there. They sort of started appearing as like a grassroots effort in response to the timber wars of the 1990s. There's increasing recognition on all sides that no one was really getting what they wanted out of conflict that, was being resolved in the courts by judges and not by, the people themselves. But I would argue that they've really started to hit their stride here in the last 10 years in response to the fire problem. It's just, there's a lot of differences in opinion as to what we should do, with forest management, but there's actually a lot of agreement that our current mega fire problem is a problem and we need to do something about it. And so that's sort of been another organizing call. Some forest collaboratives just focus on national forests, and some focus on, they call all hands, all land. Fire does not respect boundaries. That might look like, doing a national forest project, but then also engaging in a community to see if they need any help doing a census of space, and sort of looking at the land risk across the landscape as a whole to help connect people with resources and coordinate efforts. Life cycle collaborative projects, we've got planning, implementation, and monitoring, and there's always hiccups that happen, and you have to adapt, and, you have to continue to talk and grow. Sometimes they get focused on small projects, sometimes big projects like Shasta Agnes, and sometimes they try to make zones of agreement, which are just sort of statements of declarations of principles. Right now, Wild Rivers Coast is working on a zone of agreement around fuel breaks because everyone recognizes that, for wildland firefighters need those fuel breaks to go in and, have a defensible line of defense to be able to get their equipment in there and, even people who are on the more environmental side of perspective, recognize that if you don't think about these fuel breaks ahead of time, they're going to come in and cut and backburn them out anyway when you're responding to a mega fire. So how can we think about this ahead of time and put them strategically across the landscape in order to make everybody safer? So that's one thing that Wild Rivers Coast is looking to work on at Shasta Agnes, hopefully moving forward. So next slide, why participate? I think, everyone can agree dialogue is a foundational value to host democracy. It said that that's before forest collaboratives where it was only happening in a court litigation setting, which is not exactly, the place for healthy dialogue when the stakes are high like that. Also, diverse perspectives, diverse expertise. You look at forest restoration, everyone brings a different skill set and background to the table to be able to address forest problems and kind of the, in quotations, wicked problem forest health. Our forest health challenges are really complicated. They touch on rural economies, they touch on salmon and water and recreation, and there's all these things, and it's much larger than any one group, and so to the extent that we can find those solutions and work forward on the things that we can, recognizing that it's hard, it's just going to make things better. And the next thing is that you're going to uncover situations where you can find a win-win that you might not have otherwise seen. And a lot of that, again, coming back, there's a recognition that the litigation model is just not working for anyone. The next slide. It's not the, collaboration is going to fix everything. Obviously, we are operating in a situation where it's a very polarized political situation. It takes a lot of time. You can't build trust and agreement overnight, and you have to spend time working through these technical issues. There are real trade-offs in the landscape. You can find win-wins, and if that's going to be good, but, that's very challenging. These projects take time. So Shasta Agnes is a great example. We've been working on this for a long time, and then, you had the Checo bar fire come in and burn into the planning area, or into the project fire, burn into the planning area, and just totally set it back, and so it's just, I think it's hard because you are reading every month that these projects are going on. Next slide. So Wild Rivers Coast Forest Collaborative, got a picture there from a Shasta Agnes field trip. We're going up, I think this is from one of our stops with the treatment and the sugar pine stand. But it's really, it's a cool collaborative. They really organized around the Shasta Agnes project. The Shasta Agnes project was, it was not a top-down project. This wasn't something that came out of the Forest Service, headquarters in Medford. This came out of the community of Agnes. They saw the oak restoration stand and wanted to do something about it. And then they were like, well, if we're also planning this area, let's talk about recreation. Let's talk about the road infrastructure. And it sort of turned into this very big, ambitious, and I think really impressive project on a regional level. Next slide, please.
I want to comment. Everybody made that field trip, by the way, I think.
Yeah, it was a really good, it was a gorgeous day, and the great field trip. We covered a lot of different stops, from the oak relief and sugar pine. They have sudden oak death sanitation. The project has a little bit of everything. So this next slide, I just listed, all the people who participate in the Wild River Forest Collaborative, or haven't participated, just to demonstrate the diversity here. And again, obviously you'll cross these groups from, Clemson Wildlands to American Forest Research Council, and these are not groups that are going to agree on everything, but when we talk about peace breaks, that's something that we can really work on and move forward. And I don't know, I think that's pretty exciting. So let's see here. Next slide, please. Shaft to Agnes project. Like I said, this project was brought to the Forest Service by members of the Agnes community. I know Mike Miller of Curry County Citizens for Public Access has been really, really involved from the get-go in this. The purpose and need, it centers on ecosystem health alongside recreation opportunities, but it really encompasses a lot more than that. I think the oak, savanna, and woodlands restoration is a great example of a win-win situation where you have these really old white oak, and that is disappearing in really unique ecosystem to the south coast in southern Oregon, and it's been disappearing because it's been, in the past, it was maintained by low severity fire, and so you have these old oaks and then these big conifers that are growing in and shading them out. So the idea is that you remove those and allow the ecosystem with all these unique flowers to flourish, but then, as a byproduct of that ecosystem restoration, they estimate, look the numbers here, they estimate that you're going to be removing anywhere from 31 to 50 million board feet by removing those large conifers. So that's significant, and that's also significant because it's in lake successional reserves. Typically, very high conflict area if you want to do any kind of active restoration. In fact, most collaboratives west of the Cascades struggle to come to agreement on any work outside of matrix designation in Northwest Forest Plan. So that's another reason why this is unique. Another reason why I really love Wild River Forest Collaborative is most collaboratives, when they're just starting out, they're like, let's take on a really small, let's do this small, 500-acre project. We really just want to do something little so we can build trust and get to know each other. But Wild River Coast was like, let's make our first project out the gate 60,000-acre landscape scale project that not only is looking at, ecosystem health, but also looking at fire, fuels, recreation, and the whole shebang. So it's a really unique project. But because of the complexity and the fires, challenges with the Northwest Forest Plan, they had to get approval from Washington, D.C. for this project because of some of the, like I said, going into some of these areas. It has been a long time going through NEPA, and hopefully we're expecting this year finally we can get to a record of decision and then hopefully be able to move into implementation, which would be really exciting. So let's see, next slide here. We're going to the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Program slide. So that's a little bit about Shaft to Agnes. As far as the technical details of Shaft to Agnes, I'm sure Wade can speak to that a little bit better. But really quick, I just wanted to update everyone about the CFLIRT program and just give a little bit of context there. It was created as a pilot in 2009 with bipartisan sponsorship. The idea is that there's a recognition that we really need to move the dial on fire-prone landscape.
Ms. Knobloch, court boys here, could we have Wade come up to the microphone if you want to give just, let's stay on the Shasta Agnes project real quick and see if he wants to add that, and then we'll come to the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Grant. Welcome, sir. How long have you been here now?
Gosh, so a year and a few months, maybe almost a year and a half.
Gold Beach District Ranger Wade McMaster. Thanks.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and yeah, it's great to see you guys all again. Hope you all have been doing okay during this uncertain times. Yeah, first off, I just want to really recognize the efforts that the members of the collaborative had put forth into Shasta Agnes. You know, I showed up right at the tail end of, you know, kind of doing some of the fine tuning of it and packaging up to get it out. And just going through it, I saw the hard work that they put in, and I know it took a lot of time, and we had 2, you know, mega fires happen in the process. And I just want to, again, recognize the hard work that they've done, and also to just really emphasize the importance of the collaborative as far as we move forward, because Forest Service, we're not going to make any decisions on planning without involving the collaborative, without involving the county, without all of our partners. You know, that's, we recognize we can't, not only can we not do this, but we shouldn't do it ourselves. And so we really appreciate everybody there. As far as some of the updates on Shasta Agnes, I can give you kind of a quick update. So we submitted the final EIS, Environmental Impact Statement, and the draft Record of Decision up to the Washington office, and we're expecting that to be released and published July 10th, and that will kick off the 45-day objection period. And we're hoping to actually have the Record of Decision signed by Merv George sometime probably mid to late September. And we're already working on one of the first projects there called Shasta Flat, or sorry, not Shasta Flat, but Oak Flat. And so it's all part of the fuels work that's going to go around opening up those oak savannas. So we're excited about that. You know, Gold Beach Ranger District, we haven't had a whole lot of timber sales recently, and so we're happy to put that on the map. So we should have some letters going out. So there'll be an actual letter giving an update on this as well. But I want to make sure that I was able to just tell you in person. I do have some updates on the sea flirp. I don't know if I kind of wanted to wait on Jenna to give her presentation.
Yeah, hang on if I may, Mr. Chair.
We're up against the time, too.
Okay. Do you want to come back to the
About how much longer do we have, because this was scheduled?
2 or 3 minutes.
Let's go ahead and continue that.
Okay, thank you. We need a real clear idea what you need from the board. You really don't need the Curry County Board Commission approval, but we have invested a lot of time into this. You know, I'm very happy to inform the commissioners what this project is all about. There's a lot of positives that have come from this, including 24 million board feet that will be available per year recognition, and that was really worked out in detail with this agreement. And that's a big deal for our community. And Jenna, thank you for mentioning the late successional reserves. That's also a feather in our hat. And as we kind of wind down here, can either one of you just kind of recommend what you would like to have from the commission board today? I know the road, the 6 miles of road that you know, are essentially naturally decommissioned. We've watched that very close. Jenna, you referenced the Curry County in your one slide back, I think, the Curry County Public Lands Access Group. So just want to make sure that the board, I sent a letter of looking for support for you, and if we could get the board to have a clear understanding of what it would be best, the direction for us, the approach, then we're kind of the final leg of this tremendous effort, I think. Is that true?
Right, and I appreciate that letter, Court. It means a lot. It helps us working with the Washington office, you know, especially when we're putting up any NEPA that has to do with any road decommissioning. You know, it's definitely going to send up a lot of flags. And, you know, my personal view, I share with Merv George, I'm not a big fan of decommissioning roads. There was, you know, approximately 6 miles that was listed on this from earlier on. While I've been here, I had my specialists really delve in and show me why we were decommissioning them, and showing me pictures and taking me out. And it was clear to me that these roads, nature has already decommissioned them, and now we just probably need to go in there and fix it up a little bit so to deal with erosion and soils issues.
So, Ms. Knobloch, did you want to add anything to our question, make sure we're going on the right path here?
Yeah, I just, you know, roads are obviously a very important part of forest management. Yeah, I would echo what Wade said, and also, you know, ask everyone to consider the project as a whole. You know, it's really hard. You know, not everyone got everything they wanted, but a lot of people are getting a lot more of what they wanted had, you know, this long process hadn't happened. And roads are of interest to everyone, and, you know, Collaborative is moving forward not only on zones of agreement, but identifying new projects where that's going to be the topic and objective of our next meeting here. And I'm happy, Court, to have you send out meeting information if anyone's interested. But, you know, like looking at roads in the big picture beyond like these specific road closures, how can we get that as a priority topic for maybe even zones of agreement or future projects, so we can make sure this remains a priority, looking at the region as a whole.
So we can make this an action item and basically support the project. Pretty simple. We can have a letter go out that you can have a final say on, but in principle, the consensus of the board to support this project.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I just have a couple of comments, very brief. When I first saw this, I thought, my antenna went up. I thought, well, Commissioner Boyce has always been against closing roads, so I thought I'm going to dig into this a little deeper. I contacted the Curry Citizens for Public Land Access, and they generally are not in favor of closing off roads, but they were in favor of this project. I also contacted the Cape Ferrello Fire District, which I'm a part of, and he said, it looks like the road is in disrepair now. Getting rid of the trees to help prevent fuel for fire during fire season is a good thing. It also brings jobs to our area, and I think the area is steep and the public does not go there now. So those two things would make me in favor of approving this project.
We have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair. Board.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
It's a great day. Aye.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
So,
Thank you all for your presentations on
Jenna,
that.
could you stay on the phone? We have to take a 10-minute break here. Is that 10 minutes?
Oh, yeah, sure.
If you don't mind, we sure appreciate it. Next time you have to come back to Curry County, though.
I can't wait.
Okay. She just couldn't be here just today.
No, I understand why I thought that was the end of the,
No, now we're going to talk about, this is equally important, the Forest Landscape Restoration Grant. We're looking good on that. It's
I
been
just wondered
years' worth.
because we only had scheduled 10 minutes for this whole presentation, so maybe
Well, I don't know why it said 10 minutes. I'm sorry.
you're the one that said that. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, so
That's all I was saying, is I was expecting.
you're right. I did say 10 minutes, and that was before I
Minute 30s.
was able to get the two key players here.
And all of my updates are actually going to be in written form as well, so you guys will get that later. So if there's not time for me to go through this, I can work through that.
Well, we're going to come back and talk about this important grant, though. Or, is that okay?
As long as we can make it brief.
Okay. Thank you, Jenna.
and a second. And
Mr. Chair,
this is continuing on with the Wild Rivers Forest, Coast Forest Collaborative with Shasta Agnes.
Maybe we could have Mr. McMasters do his part of it first.
Would you like to do your part first until our phone rings, so we can expedite this a little bit, or? do you
Yeah, I'd
need
be
further?
glad to. So just a quick update on CFLRP. So the project that we submitted here was the Rogue Basin CFLRP. Really rolls off the tongue. And so I think Region 6 has submitted a total of 4 projects. I think there's a total of 10 nationwide. 16 has been submitted nationwide. And so what I have to say is that we just heard that there's been some prioritization. All the projects have been reviewed by FACA committee at the Washington office. And so our project, the Rogue Basin project, has been prioritized as number 3 in Region 6. So the Umatilla Wallow Whitman project is number 1, and the Okanaga-Wenatchee National Forest has one that's been prioritized as number 2. So what does that mean to us? Each region is supposed to only have 2 that get selected. So, we're kind of on the cusp of that. So we may have to still kind of push forward and talk about our cause. The fact that, the Rogue Basin project is based off of Rogue River Siskiyous National Forest, and it's based off fire protection and looking at fire severity, and we've been looking at the studies and the maps that go, and I think that this presentation was given to you guys last year about how severe the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest is as far as fire danger, and of course you guys all know this, you live here, and we're more like the forests on Northern California than we are the rest of Oregon and Washington. So we're hoping that gets looked at as far as we move forth. I'm not exactly sure when the selections will be made. I just kind of wanted to give you guys a heads up of where we're standing, that we're 3
Is there
out.
anything we can do to make a louder voice for you?
I think if you could reach out to the Washington office and some of the folks there, and just give your support.
Would you send us all an email with what you'd like to see?
Absolutely.
Perhaps we can do something like that.
Do that in
Commissioner
court.
Boyce?
I can work with you on that.
Yes, thank you. That's the primary reason I went to... Jen, are you with us?
I am. Sorry, I'm just a couple minutes late.
It's okay. Wade was
She'll get the
giving
bill, don't worry.
getting a summary here, and I'll just comment real quick. Yes, that's the primary reason I went to see James Hubbard, I should say, the Undersecretary to Sonny Perdue, United States Department of Agriculture, and I handed him that 5-minute video. I think you've seen that, maybe you haven't, but this is where we've teamed up with the Southern Oregon Forest Restoration Collaborative, proud to say. That's primarily Terry Fairbanks, certainly the Forest Service. We've had a lot of meetings on this. It's a $40 million project that goes over 4 years, so $10 million a year, primarily for, how better could we say it than forest restoration, but also fuels treatment, starting at the roads. And I know that your people at the Gold Beach Ranger District have been really tuned in to, maybe up to 50 feet on each side, as much and as quickly. You just mentioned the Oak Flat project out of the Shasta Agnes program. So, frankly, we thought we would be a little higher up on the list because of this joint effort. The county's involved, all the partners, Nature Conservancy, again, the Forest Service, BLM, the tribes, certainly some great partners. And that doesn't mean we can't be moved up again or sooner than later. But that, I'm going to take a wild guess, about 35% of those funds would come to Curry County, split pretty much 3 ways between the 3 counties, Josephitas and Jackson. Don't hold me to that, but that I would be, and I think you could comment, I don't want to speak for you, but I think you would probably be very happy if we had, a third of $4 million over a 10-year period, 10 million, a third of 10 million for that fuels treatment, so.
Oh, absolutely. And all that money goes towards implementation, so it's boots on the ground.
So we're going to get it someday. It may not be in the next 12 months, would you say, Wade? But we're moving up in the priority, so we're very excited about that.
Yeah.
Jenna?
Yeah, sorry, I dialed in a couple minutes late, but yeah, I'll just add, just the background. This is a bipartisan program. The idea is that to really move the dial on fire prone landscapes, you really need to do things at scale, and the best place to do things at scale are places that have strong collaboratives in place with the relationships, because that's where you're going to actually be able to get work done. That the first round of the program, which started there's supposed to be 10 years of funding, and the first round started in 2009 with 3 sites in Oregon on the Malheur, Fremont, Wainema, and Deschutes National Forest. I'll just add that the others, in addition to getting Rogue River 60 selected, part of it, we'd already touched on this, but this program has been authorized, but not fully funded. It's been partially funded, which means, maybe the top couple applicants. So I guess the other aspect to increasing the likelihood of Rogue River 60 getting chosen would be, especially as they look at, potentially another stimulus package, saying that rural economic development through, forest restoration should be part of the consideration so that we can reduce risk of wildfire in the country. So that's the other, I think, wild card is Congress fully funding the program at $80 million.
All right.
We still think we have the number one project, best project. And that,
Well, I certainly think so.
could you real quick give us just a little bit, thank you, a little bit of additional info on the Southern Oregon Forest Restoration Collaborative that got the $6 million, gosh, it's been a year ago now, and also how they got the match on that. That's going to be another challenge for us, is to find that match, and we're looking at fish restoration, salmon and steelhead, Mr. Byerland, and improving our watersheds, all of that combined. And so the Curry watersheds will be involved in that and would likely be very helpful as well. So,
All right. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, guys. Really appreciate our partnership.
thank you very much, Ranger McMaster.
All right, so we are going to move on then. See if I can figure out where we are. We are next to Dine and Stay with Curry Promotion with Summer Madison. And that's Madison.
Would you
Like Wisconsin, Madison?
Yeah.
Do you want the mouse?
Commissioner, if you want to just minimize this and open it up, it's
Can't
3
figure out how to get
slides.
is it down here?
No, it should be up in the upper right.
Just double click that.
Escape.
I think you've got the hand up. Can I see that? I think if you do.
Oh, there it went.
Summer hit the escape button.
Oh.
And you want this one
Yeah.
You can put it in.
here. Make it a big boy. And slideshow
Thank you.
on the beginning.
Awesome. Good morning, Summer Madison, Economic Development. We'll make this pretty short and sweet. Just wanted to make public record of a program that we are working on countywide. It is called Dine to Stay in Curry. And it's obviously economic development, tourism, OCERTAN, or TSOC as they are also known as, and the City of Brookings. But if you'll click quickly to the next slide, Commissioner, and my apologies, there are actually 4 slides. Leslie Wilkinson and Kathleen Dixon brought this opportunity to us just a few weeks back, and it's been a pretty quick project, right? Yeah, we've kind of tried to get this going and execute as quick as possible with some efficiency in there. And you'll see that both Leslie and Kathleen have a great investment in our communities as far as sustainable tourism and economic resiliency, especially with the recovery mode that we're in with COVID right now. We are excited about this program, and Leslie's got all of the details that she's excited to share with you. So if you have any questions, you can let me know. Otherwise, Leslie's going to come on up and we'll talk a little bit about it. Coming up, Leslie.
Thank you.
Good
Morning.
Morning. Some of you may know my face around the community. I started with Nature's Coastal Holiday, helping them with their promotion as a volunteer. I'm not a paid anything to anywhere. I'm actually retired, if that's possible, in Curry County. What happened was when COVID hit, it didn't take long for some of us to figure out that without some type of leg up and support, we were going to be faced with loss of a lot of businesses. And it doesn't take long to figure out that tourism is part of this community. So we got together and started, if you could click to the next slide, what we call centralized gift card purchasing and support to promote Curry County. And it's an effort to immediately promote local restaurants, and the program is to generate both public awareness in the importance of supporting our local businesses, but also offer incentives for tourists to visit our community. So why is this so important? Well, the first thing is that we're at a very important point in time in our community. It's going to be the fast cat and the smart cat that's going to survive this whole situation. And no matter what your views are about COVID, the closures have affected everybody. They have affected me personally. I have an older husband. He can't go out to eat. Frankly, I'm done cooking. So it affects everybody. And I think that it's also a way for us to let the rest of the world know that we're open, that we're here, and that we are going to be the survivors that we've always been. Because eventually the world's going to shift back, and we want those businesses to be there that we've relied on in the past. So what's happened that kind of cooked this in Kathleen and I's mind was that we saw this happening around the country in larger cities. Giles County, for example, in Pennsylvania, has sold, it says here on the slide, 90,000, but they've sold $121,000 worth of gift cards and have put that back in their community. And what they did, and I thought it was like brilliant, was the purchaser does a $20 gift card and the county pays another $10, so the purchaser gets a $30 value. So $10 comes from the county, $20 comes from the purchaser for the gift card for the local restaurant. And then immediately that money is funneled into the restaurant. So we thought, how can we make this work? And we talked to Janelle Howard at the City of Brookings, and then talked to Summer, and pretty soon we were all talking about it, and it became a collaborative effort. So if you'll go to the next page, let's talk about some of the down dirty details to this. I think the most important thing that I want to make clear today is this is a grassroots effort for promotion. Nobody knows us better than we know ourselves. And if we can promote what we have internally from a grassroots effort, we're going to be more successful. And the other thing is it's traceable. We'll know exactly what's going on, what restaurants things were bought, and how much we got from out of area. Because one of the questions when a purchaser of the gift card comes to purchase the card is asked, where are you from? And how did you hear from us? So when we buy advertising over in Medford, for example, we'll know, did you see it on the bus? Did you see it in the newspaper? Did you see it on Facebook? We'll actually know it's traceable. The other thing that I want to let you know is that this can be expanded not just for restaurants, but we could use this for lodging down the road, and we could use this for businesses. We could there's a whole idea of promotional platform that can start just with this little tiny gift card program. And all start here at the grassroots, and it'll all be traceable right here in-house. So what happens is we have already started with the Gift Up platform. Gift Up app is available online.
We've already signed up for it, and the charges, you can see there, were basically $1.08 per every $30 card sold. But guess what? Gift Up said, COVID, we have to hang here together, and they've waived those fee charges for the first $5,000 in gift cards. So basically, it's not going to cost us anything to do this. The money goes into the PayPal account, so there will be some small charges in PayPal, very minuscule. And the other thing is that every restaurant, you're going to get this little e-gift card, and it's going to talk about where the restaurant is and in what city that it's located. So that's something that's going to be nice, so everybody will know that. Advertising and promotion, it's going to all be about Facebook pushing. We've already got a Facebook site for Dine to Stay in Curry, already set up, ready to launch. It will go out through social media posts. I manage a few Facebook pages. Kathleen does. I manage a couple of websites, so we'll start pushing that way as well. The restaurants will also have that option of being able to put it on their website with the little logo that you saw at the very beginning. The other thing that you should know is that this $5,000 that's going to be invested, you have a potential of putting over $12,000 into the local economy with a $5,000 investment. Because remember, somebody else is paying that $20. You're just putting in that $10. So a final note that you need to know is that TSOC was so excited about this, they approved a $5,000 grant. And that's going to cover a whole heck of a lot of advertising. Kathleen and I are not being paid a dime for this. We are doing this as volunteers, and that $5,000 can go for promotion. We're still working on some logistics to get Gold Beach and Port Orford on board, because TSOC did say, hey, this needs to be county-wide, but that $5,000 is there, and I think that's a big vote of confidence for us. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Nuts and bolts or general overview?
Commissioner Gold?
I don't know whether you're aware, but you've got some competition out there. Curry Radio does this shopping show, and people can get coupons for restaurants or motels and so forth. So just to let you know.
Yeah, and that's, I think, is kind of a local thing. We're hoping that we're going to get a lot of people from out of area to get involved with this gift card program.
Yeah,
so yeah, I know about that.
Okay. I figured you might, but you can get some pretty hot deals there. I know.
I have a question, cost versus results. You're saying that $5,000 is to be invested, and then they're putting in another $10,000. My math gets that up to $15,000, not $12,075.
Oh, okay, this would be just, so the $5,000 here is Curry's investment, the city is another $5,000, is that what you're talking about, and then TSOC? Actually, yes, that's correct. This is just for the county itself.
I got, for the county's portion of it.
Yeah,
I understand.
yeah.
All right.
But good checking on the math.
Commissioner Boyce?
You and Kathleen Dixon, Summer Madison get together, there's no way we can lose. And right now, with the struggles that our restaurants are having, timing couldn't, in my view, possibly be better. So this, as you get restaurants to come on board, I think it's just going to be just
Well,
a great program.
I also want to make sure that you also understand that Janelle Howard has been key in this as well.
Certainly.
The city, yeah. So I think it's the four of us, and we feel pretty formidable.
She has quite the pull with the other two city administrators in Port Orford and Gold Beach, so I'm sure that we will get them on board.
Yes.
I was just wondering, have you approached Gold Beach and Port Orford? Are they involved in this also to help out?
There has been some contact about that. We're trying to work out the details that's going to make everybody happy. You know how it is sometimes to bring people together that haven't always been together. I don't have any problem with playing all in the same thing, so I'm hoping that everybody will come on board. We're all in this Curry boat together.
Yeah, and you know the county's kind of broke, so just saying.
Well, we'll make every dime count.
Okay, that's important.
Yes.
Summer, can you just verify that the $5,000 contribution actually came out of your economic development funds that we get through the lottery, correct? not from general fund or taxes or anything.
Very good, by the way, that reminder.
That's correct. So we didn't use any TLT promotions funding, and we didn't look to the business licensing funding, although I must say that the business licensing is driving a lot of this effort. We're definitely excited to be proactive in promoting those businesses that have complied with business licensing, and looking forward to promoting those that have yet to renew their license. But no, that money came from materials and services in the economic development budget. We've been very conservative this year, and just had enough by the end of the fiscal year to reinvest back into the community and the small business.
Commissioner Gold?
I'm just saying the money makes a whole lot more sense now. Thank you
You bet.
for clarifying.
All right,
Anything else?
that's all.
Well, thank you very much for your support, and we'll let you know how things go.
Let's go out to dinner, all of us.
Exactly. Yes. I want to reiterate just some of the promotions in the Valley and where that promotional effort will be moving towards in the tent cards.
Oh,
'Cause that's kind of fun stuff.
So one of the things that I do as a hobby is graphic design. So we will be designing tent cards. There'll be approximately 2,500 of those tent cards distributed up and down the South Coast as well as over in the Medford Valley. We're also going to develop a sticker that will be adherable to business windows, doors and stuff. So that will also happen. And we might even think about getting a billboard here and there. I'm still talking to Stout Advertising. I have actually talked to them preliminary about having 5 buses over there in the Medford Valley area that run up and down and putting placards on them for the entire month of August. So that'll be something.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to move on to the consent agenda. And again, I'm going to read each one of these. If any of the commissioners or council, Ms. Schmelzer, has any questions.
Were we going to discuss the wage study first?
Um,
Not wage study, but the wage adjustment?
Yeah, I guess we can discuss that first. I was going to take each line by line, but that's fine.
Yeah, we had pulled that out.
Right. All right.
Okay, let me just quickly tell you why I pulled that out. I wanted to know what the net effect was going to be. I know some departments have put in or have brought in more revenue than other things, and one of my big concerns was when we got notification of the PELT funds. Last year, we budgeted $260,000 for the PELT funds. In actuality, we got $662,297, which was a net gain of $402,297. Okay, that's for this year. But next year, we budgeted $1.6 million for the PILT funds. And, of course, we could offset that with the $402,097, but after calling Rocky McVeigh, he did not expect the PELT funds to increase. So there would be a net loss of $535,406 on our budget. So my big question is, where's that money going to come from? That's the over. And I talked to Julie about this, and she didn't have time. We didn't have time to look at the net loss or gain from the wage thing. So maybe we talked about maybe having a special meeting next Monday.
Sure.
To discuss this, simply because it's got to be passed
By the 8th.
Right.
by the 8th. Yeah.
Right. So if I may, so there's a couple of moving pieces here, and one is the master payroll has to be adopted before the first payroll, which is July 8th. So we have to adopt the master payroll by the 8th. So we developed it and finished it yesterday based on the new, the COLA and the wage study data that has been presented. So because we just finished that yesterday, we weren't able to calculate the exact impact. We know for the month of July what the impact is, But you can't just multiply that by 12 because employees get step increases on their anniversary. So you have to actually go through and look at every single employee, what is their anniversary date and what impact that will be. And we just couldn't do that within 24 hours. So I do agree, it's good to have that data. It's nice and transparent, and it helps us make some good decisions. I did talk to staff, and they said that they're going to try and have that done by next Monday, if you want to postpone that till Monday. The other option is you not adopt the wage study, and we'd have to redo the master payroll based on the old numbers. But again, it's still going to take time. We have to have that direction on it. So I'm okay with the board postponing that and having a special meeting next Monday. But again, we have to have payroll adopted by the 8th. So if we're not going to go with those new wages on Monday, we're going to have to quick revise the payroll back to the old payroll to have it adopted by the 8th. And I know that's really confusing. Just a note too about Commissioner in your comment about the PILT. Yeah, we were all surprised this week when we saw the PILT money come through. We're covered. It's always retroactive. So this past year we're covered on it. We actually have that $400,000 we can bring forward. I know we've talked about the Citizen Revenue Task Force and, having them propose some things that could bring in more revenue. I'll be honest with you, I'm hoping that they come up with something that can bring in $600,000 so we can give these employees some raises. I do want to say, though, the data is a little misleading because when you look at what it costs to actually give the employees raises, that seems like a large number. But you want to keep in mind that a lot of those departments get grants to offset their employees. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to real quickly go down the list, unless you want to wait till Monday. So the following are the departments that have fees which offset their salary expenses. It's BOPTA, elections, recording, taxation, assessment, district attorney, roads, planning, building, economic development, parks, public health, juvenile, emergency management, veterans, and solid waste. The departments where it really affects the budget because they don't have fees offsetting them, but they do have transfers offsetting them, is the board office, accounting, council, payroll and personnel, and occupancy. So the last 5 are really the ones where you're not going to be able to get substantial revenues to offset any of that. This year we did early on in the year, we had talked to the employees about if you want to see step increases, you really have to make some adjustments. You really have to figure out a way, and some of them did. I just want to point out one shining star was planning and building safety. They came in, even with COVID, at the beginning of June, they came in $150,000 higher than they had projected in revenues. So we've got these employees working, some of them, like I said, and some of the positions are completely paid for through grants. That's more like your emergency management or veterans. They're seeing a lot of money for salary. CAFA, of course, covers assessment and taxation. They give a little bit to BOPTA as well. So anyways, we're hoping that we have time, if we wait till Monday, we're hoping we have time to show you the impact, but also how much of that is actually covered by outside dollars so we know the true, genuine impact to the budget.
And I think that would be wise on our part to look at that more closely before we vote on it.
I do agree. Yeah.
Commissioner Boyce?
Well, agreed. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me to speak here real quick. I don't even have, I just want the citizens and the employees to know I don't even have time right now with the amount of details, responsibility that is on my desk to really focus on this right now so that I could make a good decision. I can say that it's obvious I've supported every possible COLA raise, step increase that we could afford. I don't think I've voted against any in the 3.5 years I've been here. However, the cold, hard reality is I can't think of any other any other local government, the state is laying off people. They're talking anywhere from 17%, cutting all kinds of budgets, fighting over the CARES money that's designed to come back to the county. I shouldn't say fighting, forgive me, but just struggling over where that money's going to go. Cities, counties, the absolute designated share that came from the United States Treasury. But with those layoffs, Curry County's unemployment rate is 18%, that we need to be reminded. I was all for this study, but we don't even know if we're going to have another surge now. We don't even know if our schools are going to be open this fall. And so I think the timing on this is, it almost tells the people that Curry County's different. We can justify this kind of spending. I don't care if it's even $200,000 right now. So I think this needs to be tabled perhaps as much as a year till we see what we're going to be dealing with in the next, PILT notwithstanding. There's a lot of work being done there through Association of ONC Counties, certainly AOC as well. Thank you for allowing me this time, Mr. Chair. I don't even want to vote on this today, or just look at our neighbors to the south, what they're dealing with. And we're talking about extending for a 3-year period, correct me if I'm wrong, some commitment to some rather significant raises. So is it justified in a good economy? You bet. And I'll be the first one to stake my flag in how important this is so that we can compete. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Schmelzer?
Just a clarification. So the only salary increases that the board would have voted on while you were here was for the sheriff, because the employees have not, other than SEIU, one time, no one has had a raise in over 10 years. I think, what did I calculate? 70% of our positions are still at the same wage as when they started, except for cost of living raises.
But Director Schmelzer, have we made a sincere effort in the last 3 years to start that process of catching up and been fully committed to that? I think we have. And so I think we've done our work there. Doesn't mean we should slow down now. However, except for a wise approach to where we might be headed. 1,500 people in this county are unemployed right now.
So just to continue then, so delaying the wage study till next Monday, if the board was okay with that, we can come up with that data we need to make a educated decision, better decision. But that also means that we're going to have to pull L too, just so you understand. So your motion would be to postpone C and L until Monday the 6th. And then just a clarification as well. So there are some items on here that reflect the new either wage or range for positions. So like D, E, F, G, and then H, 11AB. We would just have to, before you sign those orders, we just have to revert them back to the old, or I should say current wage scale numbers and everything, so the orders are accurate. I'm not saying you have to withhold waiting on those, just understand that if you're approving those new hires and stuff today, we're just going to have to make them reflect the old
The current
ranges.
wages. The current
Yes.
wages.
Current is the word.
Proposed new one.
Correct.
I mean, I would be all for waiting till Monday, having a special meeting on Monday, and let's see what the numbers tell us. I see both sides of the argument on this, and, there are some serious budget issues. We knew this when we approved the budget, that we were going to have some problems. As I said earlier, I have sent off a letter to our senators in regards to the PILT money. Standing in Washington, NACO last year, hearing the numbers that they were going to bring to Curry County, and then getting about less than half of that is pretty disheartening. So I would say if it would be wiser, let's hear the numbers, and then we can have an informed decision from that on Monday afternoon, because I understand the 8th is coming up quickly, and we need to make that decision. So,
Is that the 5th, by the way? No, 6th. Monday's the 6th.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm in agreement there, Mr. Chair. Forgive the interruption.
So with that, we are going to pull C and L from the consent agenda. And then I will read off, continue on, let me read off from A, and then we'll attach each one as we go. Consent agenda A, business meetings for June 17th, 2020. B would be commitment, appointments, Tourism Promotion Committee, Solid Waste and Recycling, Advisory Committee, and Curry Public Transit Advisory Committee. C has been pulled. D, new job description, facilities maintenance worker custodian. E, status change, B. Allen Facilities. F, temporary pay increase, administrative assistant working as office manager. And G, reclassification of an employee building. These would be done at the current pay scales adopted by this board. H, adopting a budget committee approval salaries and insurance benefits for elected officials. I, accepting a grant from the United Way Southwestern Oregon for Suicide Awareness and Prevention Council. J, OHA 2019-2021 IGA Intergovernmental Agreement 159808, and amendment number 12 amended and restated for public health. K, supplemental budgets. L has been pulled. M, appoint 2 new members to LIPSIC, which is the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council. N, copier leases. Ms. Schmelzer, if you would just expound on that just a little bit so the public understands why and what you did there. There was a lot of work done on that.
Sure. What we have is currently nobody was overseeing stuff like copiers and printers. So every department on their own would secure a lease for a company to come in and provide their copier services. And what we have is a real mess because you have different vendors, leases coming in, starting at different times. No one's tracking them. I shouldn't say no one, but we don't do a very good job tracking them. For example, when the lease expires, sometimes it's an automatic renewal, like 30 days at a time, but also your copier prices go up over that as well. So what this effort does is it tries to get us to all go with one vendor, one big lease or oversight, and the company that gave us the lowest prices is actually willing to basically serve as the consultant who would always be monitoring those leases and saying, hey, so-and-so, your lease is coming up, you need to make a decision. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get everybody on the same page with the same vendor. We're also, if we can get everyone ultimately on with the same vendor, we can also get group rate discounts. So it's a money-saving measure. It's also a governance matter, trying to make sure that we're just doing a better job and all coordinating and instead of piecemealing it department by department.
Okay, thank you. Next is O, accepting a grant for an iPod run or for a pod runner purchase. Signature authority to the Community Development Director, Jeremy Dumeyer, Emergency Management Coordinator. Those of you that don't know what a pod runner is, it's basically an emergency services station that's on wheels. It's basically a trailer, and it contains a lot of radio, a satellite dish, and a lot of ways to communicate throughout the county, and that's at a minimum. That's what it does, and that was a grant-funded thing. P is Juvenile Department Youth Litter Patrol Program, Ms. Lang. Q, if you wouldn't mind, Roadmaster Christensen, step to the mics, please, in case anyone on the board or has a question for you. Q is Roadmaster Signature Authority to award Cedar Creek Culvert Replacement Project. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name, in the amount of $372,000.
JJ spelled it right 3 times.
$481,000. R, Roadmaster Signature Authority to temporary construction of county storm drain easements for Cedar Creek Culvert Repair Project. S, Roadmaster Signature Authority to award Langlois Mountain Roadside and Drainage Improvements Project for that same company. T, Roadmaster Signature Authority to temporary construction and storm drain easements for Langlois Mountain Road and drainage improvements. U, Roadmaster Signature Authority for 2020 North County Paving Project Change Order Number 2. And then we had V, Roadmaster Signature Authority to purchase 1 new Caterpillar Model M314F excavator with attachments for $265,650. W, Roadmaster Signature Authority to purchase 1 new Caterpillar 920 compact wheel loader with attachments for $177,564. X, Roadmaster Signature Authority to purchase one new Kenworth T880 day cab chassis with new 2021 Rogue truck body dump box for $164,541. Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The road department has been quite a bright spot for Curry County for a lot of years, no exception of recent weeks, months, and years. I voted against the last equipment expenditure. I believe it was a double dump truck that was in the neighborhood of $240,000. The road department has, correct me if I'm wrong, 18 employees, 19, and
currently we're not fully staffed right now.
okay. And the reason I've supported everything is because some of that equipment was 30 years old or more. This is equipment that we're trying to replace, I think, is not quite that bad, maybe 15 years. And I'm just not comfortable right now with everything I communicated on the salary study and the potential, hopeful, likely wage increases reasonably soon. This kind of these three items total $607,000. I'm very concerned the message that sends to the people that we got it, so therefore we should spend it. I'm not suggesting that is your approach. I just know that the last 2 years we've averaged somewhere around $600,000 or $700,000 in equipment with 18 employees. I'm trying to justify that when I have to talk to the taxpayers, and I don't want to do anything to not show appreciation for the work you've done, and I've been very public and private both about that. But right now, I want to just hit the skids for a little bit and say, hold the line. Can we repair this equipment? Where are we? Are we going to be able to fill those other spots? You know, this is not an attempt to do cold water. We have 225 miles of road that we have to maintain. I really appreciate your position and the roadmaster's position that some of this equipment is going to contracting. But I also have other people in the county that are running private companies are going, the road department's getting too big. We don't want to be in competition with them, so we just got to be on guard a little bit. And I would request that the board consider, Mr. Chair, in these three expenditures to go just even 90 days to see where we're going to be after September or even October. That's my take, board.
So let me continue on. Y, Dyer Partnership, $202,200 with Morrill Bridge Task Order. And Z, Curry County Road Department contract with McLennan Excavation for installation of $27,210 in storm drainage improvements on Ocean Way and Driftwood. So what I would like to do is have a motion to approve the consent agenda without V, W, and X, and we will deal with them separately as you asked prior.
V, W, and X, I think you mean.
V,
I so move.
V like Victor, W like whiskey, X like X-ray.
Okay, I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
We already have a motion. Do you have a second?
Yeah. Second.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold?
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce?
Yes.
Chair Pash?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
You know, what I'd like to do is take all three of these individual for comment from Mr. Christensen and explain to this board why you feel that this is necessary so that we're fully informed for a vote. First, we'll go to V, which is the Roadmaster Signature Authority to purchase one new Caterpillar Model 314F excavator with attachments for $265,000, sir. Good morning.
If it's okay if I could talk general about all three?
Absolutely.
Okay, and so all three of these are in the approved 2021 fiscal year plan under $680,000. As Commissioner Boyce says, this comes out to $607,000. We did come in under. We did receive governmental pricing on all this equipment, and part of this is our 6-year equipment replacement plan because we didn't replace equipment for many, many years. And all this equipment is having issues, and those issues cause us to be inefficient and ineffective. You have to realize historically, the road department had 3 divisions, one in Port Orford, one in Brookings, and one here in Gold Beach. Now, when we drive to the furthest ends of the county in Port Orford or Brookings, we mobilize an hour and a half to the job site. We have an equipment failure. Now, that whole crew and that project is not being done. That's very inefficient, ineffective. The other thing is that there are laws heading our way. They've already been enacted in California where these older equipment, they're no longer allowed to be used for many hours or many miles a month by other road departments or public agencies. And so part of this is to move towards the Tier 4 equipment so we can meet those laws when they're enacted in Oregon. And so what happens in Portland happens here, and that's happening. The other is right now our equipment's in fair condition and has a really good resale value. And so right now is a good time to turn it over. We've been spending a lot of money and time fixing and maintaining it. It's all in good working order. But it's their age, as you mentioned, 13, 15, how many years old, and it's time to replace them. And so they were part of our strategic planning internal, and so we'd like to move forward with these purchases.
Is it in your budget?
Yes,
Can I ask, because we're going to spend $607,000, you said?
yes.
I'm not going to ask you to give me an approximate number even, but could you give a ballpark figure of what you think the other vehicles that you're going to send to auction to be sold would bring back to the county?
It's hard to tell because last year we projected like $30,000 for 2 pieces of equipment. We ended up getting over $60,000. And so, but we estimate maybe $25,000 for the dump truck. And for the rubber tire excavator, I'm actually not going to auction it off because it has a very low auction value because there's not a lot of companies that use rubber tire excavators. They want track excavators. So that one has a really low turnover, and it happens to be my most in-demand equipment between my construction crews and my maintenance crews. And so I really want to keep the old one in fair condition, but have a new one in good condition. So we'll keep the older one locally, the newer one going far. So we could be efficient and effective. And so I'm not going to sell that one, but I think we'd be lucky to get $15,000 for it. And then the front loader, I think we could get $15,000 for that, but it may go for $25,000 and the dump truck may go for $25,000. We really don't know, but it appears that right now these older vehicles have high value. But when we go to Tier 4, that value's gone because there's no one going to want to buy them. So right now is a good time.
All right, does anyone have anything further? Commissioner Gold?
Do you have any estimate as to how much downtime you have? Because I know having employees just kind of stand there while equipment's down
No,
is not cost effective.
no, we don't. But we do cost accounting and everything, but I have not pulled those numbers or asked for those numbers.
Okay.
Commissioner Boyce?
Employees with downtime, when you do the math of what of the 607,000, I think it would demonstrate that waiting 3 months wouldn't be the end of the world till we see what is going to happen to the future of this county. It sends a message that the Curry County's those kind of expenditures all at once. I think I just have that concern. I think there's a reason. I don't know for sure, but there's a reason that Mr. Christensen's 2 predecessors, boy, they didn't wait. They waited till the last minute. They figured out a way to repair them and move forward that way. I know that you have been focused on that as well. I just can't support this right now, all things considered.
All right, anything further? Commissioner Gold?
I just have one question on the price of this equipment. Is it set in stone for now, or is it going to change, or?
Actually, these, the heavy equipment, the excavator and the front loader, Caterpillar's been holding these prices for me since spring, March, April. And so, no, they're not held in stone.
Okay.
And also too is, all this equipment takes 3, 4, 5 months to get here.
Yeah, I just worry about inflation kicking in with the climate that's happening right now.
So you would have use for these, for the, you're hopeful for this for the winter storms and all that?
Actually, yes, and yes, absolutely.
All right, so let's, with nothing further, let's go ahead and vote on V, Roadmaster Signature Authority to purchase one new Caterpillar Model 314F excavator and attachments.
I move that we approve this purchase.
Do I have a second? I'll second. Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
No.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried 2-1.
W, Roadmaster Signature Authority to purchase one new Caterpillar 920 compact wheel loader with attachments 177,564.
I move that we approve the purchase.
Do I have a second? I'll second. Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
No.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried 2-1.
X, Roadmaster Signature Authority to purchase one new 2021 Kenworth T880 day cab chassis with new 2021 Rogue truck body dump truck for $164,541. Roll, please, motion.
I move that we approve this purchase.
Do I have a second? I'll second. Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
No.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously. Motion carried 2-1. Sorry.
All right, next we have discussion items.
Thank you, Richard.
Revised, A is revised job description, Ms. Schmelzer.
So I believe we moved the IGA with the parks up to A, so since Mr. Becker's here, can we go forward with that?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to be...
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry.
We're going to be discussing an intergovernmental agreement with Curry County Parks and Oregon State Parks regarding interim management of the day use area of Alfred A. Loeb State Park. And our new Parks Director, Anthony Durock, was going to be presenting on this, but we had guests check in yesterday at Lobster and they had no water pressure, so he had to run up there this morning. He's trying to get the water working for them. But Economic Development Coordinator Summer Madison was working with Oregon State Parks on this, so she is here to help as well. So Larry, if you just want to go ahead and kind of talk about, I guess, the state's position. I know a lot has changed since the board talked about it last time. We didn't even have a draft IGA to look at. And then I know one was put together, and it sounds to me, by what staff is telling me, is that staff isn't completely in alignment with state parks, vice versa. So maybe if you want to just talk to us and we can see whether to pursue the IGA, and if we do, what needs to be done to make it amenable to both sides.
Larry Becker, South Coast District Manager for the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. Thank you. And I have to take that off to talk. I'm sorry. It's really hard. Don't tell my wife I took it off.
You're on film.
So I think through communication with Representative Brock Smith, the county was contacted state parks or crosswise about how can we open the day use area of Loeb State Park. Through that process, Ms. Madison contacted myself, and we started talking about processes to do that. Danny Padilla, who's the park manager for the Harris Beach Management Unit, which oversees that process, then put together a document that says this is the issues that we would run into and why we hadn't opened it. Right now with state parks, kind of the backstory is when COVID-19 hit, state parks funding was cut in terms of we get 44% of our state park funding from lottery. And so when lottery was shut down basically by bars and restaurants being shut down, we lost that funding. We get 50% of our funding through user fees. And when we closed our day use areas and our overnight camps, we lost our other funding. We have no funding from general fund in the state budget, so we had no tax revenue funding in state parks at this time. Really skinny on federal funding, about 6%. So it makes it a little challenging. So as we went into shutdown and we realized that now our projected revenues and our projected operations was cut way back, we had to make decisions on parks that we could reopen if we could reopen. And we assessed them all and pulled into those parks that we knew were going to have our bigger visitor numbers and have the bigger impact on the community. In that particular case, in the Brookings area, that was opening Harris Beach State Parks area and keeping Sam Boardman open, keeping those parks open as much as we could. As a consequence, we had to close Low Campground and day use area. We have no staff to manage it. That was what our problem. So the county came to us and said, what can we do? And we started a conversation, presented the issues. I sent Summer a draft IGA that I put together, and then she gave us some comments back. Questions I had was, we talked about it on site. We talked about some compromise. Instead of, we have 2 gates to the day use area at Loeb. We have a gate into the parking area at the upper part of the day use area, and then there's a gate that goes out on the gravel bar. Normally in the summer, normally year-round, we would open the gate to the gravel bar also and allow people to park out on the gravel bar. That's a popular thing to do at Loeb. In order to manage the park, even for the county, I made the recommendation both to our agency and to the county that we consider only opening the upper parking lot, and folks can still use the gravel bar. They'll just have to walk to it. That would reduce our vehicle capacity at the park significantly, probably about anywhere from 50 to 100 vehicles at a time. But it will still allow people to access the gravel bar for accessing the river, for swimming and other recreational activities. What it would do for the county, if they were to help us operate that park, would reduce the challenges of getting people off the gravel bar at closing time. The park closes at 9. If we don't keep people off the gravel bar at night, we have issues out there that oftentimes require assistance from state police, or in this case would be from Sheriff Ward and his deputies. We talked about that. We'll make that adjustment in the IGA. The other issues that came up that we're concerned about was Park Supervisor DeRock mentioned using a volunteer. We agreed that we would allow the volunteer to stay at the campground there at the state park. We have a caretaker there now. Our caretakers are not trained or carry the liability to deal with visitors beyond just an advising and that's it. So we won't allow them to make enforcement or rule contacts. But we did agree that we would allow the county to put a volunteer there if the county could come up with a volunteer. We have sites there and facilities. The challenge we have is we need to know if you have a volunteer there, who's going to cover the days off for that volunteer, and what is the plan B if for some reason a volunteer leaves? How would the county adjust to maintain the agreement to open and close the day use area, or to actually close it? We've agreed to go ahead and have our volunteer unlock the gates in the morning, but the county would then be responsible for cleaning the restroom, picking up the garbage, and then locking the gates in the evening at 9 o'clock, locking the gate, getting people out of the park. Part of the agreement also was realizing that there's some cost in that. We would provide supplies into the restroom building. It's a vault toilet. It has a storage building on the back side of it, a storage vault room. And we would put supplies there for the cleaning of it, so it wouldn't be a cost for maintenance cleaning supplies to the county. And we agreed that the county could take any garbage that they picked up at the park, and it could be put in our compactor at Harris Beach at our campground, so that there wouldn't be any cost for the trash maintenance. What we really ran into was a personnel issue. We just don't have the people. And I recognize the county doesn't either, and they're going to be looking at a volunteer and the challenges of that. The third leg of that was, and according to the conversations I've had, was to have that sheriff's office be available to come up and deal with any issues that were beyond the volunteers' ability. State police let us know right away that they were not going to be able to respond for us this year up at Loeb. They usually are our low coverage. And so they were saying, don't open it. If you open it, we're not going to always be able to come up. We paid them overtime to come up and take care of our park, and that came out of our budget. I lost all that overtime money else.
So they're not willing to volunteer their services to come up there?
State police, no, not to volunteer. They if they're doing routine patrol, but running up that road just to come up to the state park, they normally won't do that. The state police on southern coast anyway, they're down officers, and their recruitment class was cut this year from the whole same issue. So they're trying to still take care of their Highway 101 patrols and other park obligations.
I wonder, Sheriff Ward, because it's a state park, he didn't have jurisdiction. If we do a joint IGA here, he would. Has anyone talked to Sheriff Ward about the possibility of doing that coverage?
Yes, Summer and I both did, and the sheriff is willing to come out there if there's something unlawful, some illegal activity. If it's not illegal, then it would be covered by our code enforcement officer who actually lives in Harbor.
And under our Oregon revised statutes and under our Oregon administrative rule of revised statutes, law enforcement officers in the state of Oregon have authority within a state park, even outside of an intergovernmental agreement. So all the sheriff's departments, all the city police of the state parks within their jurisdiction, and all the state police have the authority within our parks not only to enforce state law, of course, but and county but also our administrative rules, our park rules.
See, I learned something today.
Yeah. So it's a lot of the places we have agreements, so they'll do that because they feel more comfortable with the secondary agreement. But by the Oregon revised statutes, they already have that authority.
Okay.
I can comment a little bit on the volunteer or the camp host proposal that the county had. If we agree to go ahead with this, what staff was thinking is we just advertised for camp hosts, and we had some people respond. So we would reach out to them and see if they are interested in having an agreement with us. Because what we do is we actually have a contract with our camp hosts, which explains when and when they cannot leave the property, what happens if they need coverage, etc. So these people would be bound by that. But we were thinking we would put a camp host out there to make sure there's eyes and ears there, clean the toilet, etc. In exchange, they get to stay there. But we would not be paying them the $300 monthly stipend. So we would go through our pool. If we can agree to, and if we can come to an agreement on this, we would reach out to our pool of candidates and see if there's any that are interested in staying there without the stipend, but in exchange, they would be responsible for the garbage collection, etc.
So we believe that there's a chance here, a good chance, and that cooperatively we can work with the county and we can at least get it so folks can be at that park and go down and enjoy the gravel bar even if they can't take rigs out on it. We talked about the fact that there are 4 gravel bars further east on the river for folks that they can drive out of, still within the Forest Service boundary areas. And then, of course, Social Security bar, which is down closer to Brookings. Okay. So that, while it's not ideal, it'll reduce the potential of challenges for the volunteer up there to deal with the issues, because that one more step out on the gravel bar increases significantly the amount of time we spend dealing with folks at the
Absolutely.
park.
Counsel?
Thank you. Hello. Thanks for coming. I've got a question about, we would provide the county employees empowered to enforce park ordinances, which I think are the county park ordinances, which I understand besides our sheriff's department is our code enforcement officers and even our parks director.
So that would probably be one of the questions we have to solve, because the ordinances for that park would be the state park ordinances.
Thank you.
Not the county park ordinances.
Yep, and that was because for, yeah, go ahead.
We have provided, or we showed Summer, and we would provide them with the Oregon administrative rules for park rules and regulations. The primary rules that we have challenges with down there at times are vacating the park at closing time. Sometimes there's some alcohol-induced promises, or problems, not promises. I promise you problems from alcohol-induced issues, but and then every once in a while we don't allow any fires on the gravel bar, and so every once in a while somebody tries to have a little fire down there, which is not a good thing to do on Round River Rock anyway. In case you want to know, they like to blow up. But, that's about the bigger issues we have, is a little noise and stuff.
All right. Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you. Well, I've been watching this pretty close, and I remember when you called me and said, hey, the main office, Oregon State Parks, laid off 47 people, and I mean, that's a lot of lives, that's a lot of hurting people, and so it'd be awfully hard for me to go against your recommendation, certainly David Brock-Smith, Economic Development Coordinator, Madison. But I still have, Mr. Chair, I'm going to support this, but I still have some apprehensions on liability. I didn't know the sheriff would only go out and with the county's budget and his budget, certainly their budget, that makes sense. Go out if there's law being broke or that kind of activity. So, like I say, I'm going to support it, but I just really want the county to be aware of what we might be getting into from a liability standpoint. And it's been great to work with the Oregon State Parks, and maybe we can just be that bridge until your budget's return. And
Yeah, I echo that. I've been 39 years with state parks, and it's my passion, it's my love, and to see this happening has been really difficult. But the challenge is, of course, is this is unpredictable. We're hoping this is just a short-term, one summer fix. Normally we would hire 15 seasonals at Harris Beach, which would help us run those peripheral parks. We hired 2. And so there's a lot of our park features that I'm used to us taking care of that I'm having to look the other way right now. Our grass is tall, our trails are not trimmed. Some of our restrooms aren't being cleaned as often as we like to do it. And then we have, in southern Curry County, we have 2 parks currently closed, Chrissy Field and then Lauford Loeb. And then in northern Curry County, we have Cape Blanco closed. And that's all effect of pulling staff back to where we can service the most visitors to the area at a time. That's tough. And I realize that we're asking a lot of the county to come on board, and Sheriff Ward, and he's got his folks have a lot of work already to do. And most of our rule enforcement, our rule issues are rules, they're area administrative rule violations. So maybe the code enforcer can handle most of them. The law enforcement side, where you get a minors in possession or you get into something that would require a law enforcement at a misdemeanor level is rare.
Okay. Commissioner Boyd?
I just want to know, if we were to sign this agreement and we find that there's just all kinds of problems, would we be able to rescind the agreement and just close it down and maybe let people know ahead of time in an article if things blow up, it's going to have to close again?
Yeah, the IJA is written in such a way that either the county or the state could cancel the agreement, rescind the agreement. What we would do is, if we can, to a point where we couldn't manage the property together and we couldn't guarantee public safety and resource protection, we would have to make the decision to go ahead and reclose the park, and we would do that. But we wouldn't hold the county to an agreement that they couldn't sustain.
And I would think it would be important to have publicity to that effect, that we're opening this for the public's consumption of recreation, but if we have problems up there, you're disobeying the rules, et cetera, we may have to close it down again.
Yeah, we're going to have to do a little PSA announcements. One of the things we'll run into if we do sign the agreement is the fact that we're going to keep the gravel bar section closed with the vehicles. We know that. We realize that we're going to take a little bit of pushback on that probably in the local community. However, it's going to allow more folks an opportunity to use that area by at least having the upper parking lot available.
And you mentioned you'd lose some parking. Is there a way to perhaps have a workaround on increasing some parking space in the upper area?
No, it's pretty limited. It's the paved area is about all we have, and right now there's 50-some slots, and we've turned some gravel areas or non-paved areas into slots at this point to maximize that.
The county could help lessen your burden if you wanted to get rid of a park. We know one we'd like to take. McVeigh would be all right to take off your hands.
You weren't aware of that, were you?
I have to tell you, I'm very aware of the conversation on McVeigh, and we've had that conversation a couple times. I
keeping it out there,
You need to keep it out there. I will tell you, one of the things that we will see in our state park agency, I mean, this was something that caught us by surprise. We were in good condition. We had a solid lottery funding, and we had a solid user fee funding. And those 2 legs on that stool got pulled out from underneath of us. And so we're going to have to sit back and look at what we're doing and how we're doing it, knowing that this could go on for a while or this could happen again. And part of that is looking at what we're doing and what our partners can do. What can the counties do? What can the cities do? What can other recreation and resource agencies do that maybe state parks shouldn't be doing? Or, like you said, having a park, Curry County having a Curry County Park in southern Curry County wouldn't be a bad idea.
That would be a great
We just
idea.
have to make sure we can do it right.
Thank you. We have one, you're good? Okay. All right, well, thank you.
So at this point, we're interested in knowing if the county would be interested in signing the IGA, knowing that we do have to make some final tweaks. We have a few things we have to iron out there, but then just you've seen the agreement so far, the draft, and that covers most of it. So any other minor additions we would have approved by Huddle, and then ask the board to authorize myself or the Parks Director to actually sign the IGA.
Commissioner Boyce?
I'm ready to make a motion, sir.
Do-
Did you have anything else? or-
No, go ahead.
Okay. Do we make a motion that the board approve this IGA agreement with the Oregon State Parks and Recreation? And, yeah, that's it.
With revisions as agreed
With the tweaks,
upon.
as you said, yes. Okay.
I'll second that motion with agreement that we may have some additions there or deletions.
And signature authority to.
And signature authority to Julie Smelser.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Aye.
Chair Pash,
Aye.
motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you, Larry.
You too.
Thank you.
Make sure you bring up that park down there in South County for Curry. All right, then, and I'm sorry for the mix-up there a while ago. We're going to go to 7A, revised job description, Ms. Schmelzer.
Okay, so today July 1st begins my exit from Curry County. As you know, I'm not going to be taking on new programs. I'm going to slowly start to wind down so I can move back to Wisconsin. I will be going home to Wisconsin for a couple weeks at a time, coming back, doing some remote work until the board tells me I can't. I'm willing to stay on and train any new person if the board so wants me to. I'm willing to take on special projects if the board wants me to. But in the meantime, we do have to start looking forward for a replacement and running the advertisement for that position. So what I did do is I put together a job description that looks daunting, but I really don't think it is that bad. Basically looking for someone who has the finance skills as well as the public administrative skills. The thought is the person would serve as your finance director / county administrator. Right now I do my job description is community development and administration. So my recommendation to you is to take away the community development side. And I've already reached out to the 8 departments that are under community development, asking if any of them were interested, if the board was willing, would one of them be willing to step up to make sure that things continue to flow and they continue to interact together, and also to serve as that voice to the board to represent those 8 departments. And I've had 2 of them step forward. Summer Madison said she would be willing to, and Dave Fortman said if we needed, he would be willing to if something happened and they didn't put Summer in there. Normally what you do with that is you give them a small stipend for those increase of duties, but so the proposal is you take community development out of this job description and instead you add finance in. We do know that there are finance people out there that often want to move up to an administrative role, so those people are out there. Summer Sears, the girl who did our contracting for the budget, she was actually aware of 2 of them that were interested until it was. I'm sorry, people. That's the truth of the matter. So it's going to be difficult to find someone. But I do think the position is very doable. I think we just have to market it correctly and give it some time to see if we get any applicants or any qualified applicants. And if not, then maybe we should come back and revise the description again. But for now, I mean, we've tried to get a finance person. We haven't been able to. We put it out. We actually spent money on an advertisement looking for someone to do it as a consultant. We didn't get any applicants, any interest. So let's try it and see what happens.
Commissioner Gold?
I know we were interested in getting this way to get applicants for jobs other than just in the local newspapers, et cetera. Have we looked into that further?
We did budget for it. You're talking about a system that's called NeoGov, is the one that most counties use.
Right.
And what happens is people, once you apply in NeoGov, you're able to use that application in any community that uses NeoGov. It also does casts a broader net where things are advertised, makes it easier to apply. Although we budgeted for it, we have not done anything further with that. Of course, we want to get through OpenGov first, before we enter another one. So we would not be able to take advantage of that for this position at this time.
Okay.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like everything else, I want to go into a little holding pattern here and see where we are. I'm interested in contracting out if it's something we can afford, and I suspect it will be. Director Schmelzer, I didn't notice the pay. Would the pay stay the same as what you're currently getting? Maybe it's...
Yes, it is. It's the same.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thank you. I'm going to be wanting, since I'm going to be here the next 4 and whatever years, I'm really interested in serving as Community Development Commissioner Liaison. So that caught my eye right off. I think that we've seen some great growth there, and I think it's fair to say that I've watched that very close over the last 3.5 years, and very happy about the successes. And you referenced one of the planning and building permits going up, and so wow, that's how do we maintain that? Is it possible? With a lot of people hurting out there, I just don't know what we can afford. I'm going to support this job description change, especially after Director Schmelzer mentioned that, if it doesn't work right off, we don't get the right people, then we could amend it. The other question I had was, if we got a separate finance person, I'll just throw this out for discussion real quick, and then I'm done, Mr. Chair, on the finance person, if that could be a half-time person, and would that potentially help our quest to find that person? I liked your idea, however, that there would be a combined program here with the DCO and the finance person.
So the question is, in case anybody didn't understand that, or to make sure I understand it, was, can we advertise for a part-time finance director?
Yes.
So, yes, we could. It's in the budget. The budget actually has that position at a full-time status, so the money is set aside for that. But I will say we didn't advertise it as a part-time position. We advertised it as for consulting services, and nobody was interested. So if this doesn't work, we could go back and run an ad for a part-time finance person. I don't know what you'd want to do with this position then. You'd probably maybe put community development back in it, but then you're looking for a special skill set with that as well.
Yeah, I'm one of those that believe that, it's too late to do it for this cycle, but we could have combined the treasurer and a finance position into one position. Would have been, I think, beneficial to the county.
Well, and that has been talked about by several groups. We've had committees here and there that always come up with these ideas of how we can save money, and that is something that has been brought up several times with those committees. Right now, we're too late because we're in the election, but that's something I think the board could and should look at in the future, is maybe should that be appointed and be part-time perhaps, I don't know, or part-time finance.
I wonder if it might behoove us to reach out to the two candidates and find out what their financial backgrounds are, and would they be willing to do that if elected? I don't know.
All I can do is say no.
I don't think it's a bad idea at all, and I think that's also been discussed, and what is the workload? We got a really good assessment of that, combining those two positions. any way we can consolidate and save money, I think we're all on board and tuned in with that.
Well, I think those are good ideas. I think it still doesn't address
Right.
the problem that we need somebody in my position, and we need to move forward with a description on
Well,
that.
and I'd like to say on your position, I mean, I understand that NeoGov is not an option, which I wish it were. We spoke about this months ago because when we learned that you were considering leaving, and at that point, I think we probably could have instituted it at an expense to the county, but like you said, we did budget for it. I would like to ask that we don't just do it in the local newspapers and surrounding newspapers. There are ways online for a small fee, relatively small fee, to put national ads out and for these kind of positions.
It needs to be advertised in ICMA, GFOA, and finance and administrative national and state organizations is where it needs to be advertised.
NACO?
Pardon
NACO?
me? We could. Mhm.
I could actually contact them and see the best way. Commissioner Boyce?
I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but thank you. It has been discussed to make that the finance and the treasurer, that at some point, we don't want to take away the people's right to go to the ballot box and determine who they want to represent them as a treasurer. However, if you got a finance, you got a treasurer, you got the money going in, money going out, that may not be a good fit. I don't even know if it's legal. I just see some little yellow blinking.
It is
Do you
legal.
have a comment
Yeah,
on that?
it is legal. We have looked at that.
One person.
My concern is if you have a treasurer who's also doing finance, we'd want to make sure they're an accountant, because what we're really seeing is we really need that accountant person, just not somebody who's good with finances, but an actual county accountant. CENA has picked up a lot of work there. It's not fair to CENA to continue to keep working her like this. It's really not. And there's a lot there that is beyond her scope. She's not an accountant, so we do need that position for somebody doing that work.
Commissioner Gold?
I would add something to that. They need to have governmental accounting
Yes.
experience,
Yeah.
because it's a whole different ballgame.
All right, well, do I have a motion?
I just had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Counsel.
Julie Schmelzer, Director, I didn't see a lot in here that, and it says this position would be overseeing the finance department. Was there, and you changed out, this seems to have eliminated mostly the community development department. Was there more language in the old description about also human resources, or?
It's still in there, but you scroll down to
Okay.
it.
Okay,
So-
good. And then the other thing, the government accounting is mentioned in here under essential duties and responsibilities, number 7, directs operation of central accounting system consistent with GASB, which is government accounting standards, and GAAP, general accepted accounting principles, et cetera. But down on the required education and or experience, bachelor's degree in economics, business administration, public administration, or relevant field. If we're really, as we just described, looking for someone with accounting, I've got an economics degree and I'm not an accountant. So I just think that maybe calling out specifically accounting, even though you could include that in relevant field, makes sense. If we're really looking for accountants, I think just adding that language would not hurt.
Sure. So the required education and experience is what we currently use and have been using. And we haven't been able to attract somebody with that. But that is how we attracted the last several people in that position. We can certainly tweak it, add whatever you want. Like I said, what I did was I took my job description, took Director of Community Development out, took the finance and melded them together. So it's basically repeating what was already on the job descriptions.
So in the finance job description and the county accountant job description, there was no requirement that they have a bachelor's degree in accounting or anything? It said they had a bachelor's degree in economics, business. I'm sorry, I don't want to get bogged down in this. I'm just trying to understand why there's no call out to accounting experience or
Right.
requirement.
We can
Even on a
add
county
that.
accountant job. All
We
right.
can add that. I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Do we have agreement on that?
I agree.
think so.
Good.
And then just one other question. You have this effective today, and so this is essentially changing your job description today too. Okay, so that you won't be from that here on out doing any community development stuff. That's, officially you wouldn't have that authority if this was effective today. Is this going to be effective upon hiring the new person, or is it effective today?
Well, normally what we do is we advertise we agree to the job description so we can advertise it. You can't advertise it unless you have an approved job description.
I get it, but we could make the effective day, of it with the position. The description is one thing, when it's effective is another thing, because if this is effective today, you're no longer overseeing community development starting today. So is that the intent of this? I mean, legally, you wouldn't have authority to do that because this is a board order effective today. I don't want to get bogged down, but I just want to make sure we're clear on what we're doing.
Didn't we make it effective upon hiring this
Yeah,
individual?
I think something like this job description is effective as applicable to the current director's replacement, something like that. But if it's effective today, you're not doing any community development anymore. So
No, it can't be effective for today. It just can't be. Commissioner Boyce?
But if she's gone, who do the 7 department heads go to?
What do you mean,
Actually,
go on?
Community development, because community development is 8 departments.
I understand, but I'm not sure what, clarify gone.
If she's
In Wisconsin for a
today's-
week?
Yes, I could have said it easier.
Oh,
Thank
then
you.
I would still continue to do as I do right now when I'm on vacation. I mean, I check my phone, I check my emails, I take calls.
So Julie,
remotely on that.
the intent of this is to have this not be effective to you immediately, but to have it be effective for your replacement.
Correct.
Okay. So if we can word the order that way, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Revise
I'll
the
work.
order.
Yep, we'll revise it to make sure it's clear that way. Good, thanks, that helps.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the order of the job description with the amendment that it will be effective when the new employee comes on.
And adding accounting skills in the...
And adding the
Skills.
accounting skills portion.
And a bachelor's?
It does require a bachelor's, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So, do I have a second?
I'm gonna,
Go ahead.
I'm going to second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion?
So I just want to bring something up. So we still need to decide what to do with that community development side of it. So I don't know if you want to do that at another meeting, that's fine.
Well, can we get this vote done and then we can talk about it
Sure.
immediately?
Just a question, I think in the past, when we have employees, you're essentially talking about working out of class, where the two folks who stepped up, Summer and Dave, would be paid working out of class bump for doing the community development supervision. I think those are each independent orders. So if we're having a special meeting sometime in the future,
Monday.
we could do those.
Sure, I just need direction if that's
Yep.
something we want to do.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that then? Yeah, from Monday.
Okay, so the direction is continue to have community development director oversee the 8 departments, recognizing it's probably going to be an existing employee and there's going to be a small stipend to do that.
Well, again, would that also be effective when you get the replacement in it? In other words, are you still going to be doing community development until we, oversight until we get the new person?
That's what
So
we just said.
Right.
I agree, but within these
I
bumps,
need the
I think we don't even
clarification,
need
thank
we don't even need the bumps until that time in the future either. Then we don't even have to act on that until we get a new person. Once a new person comes in, since you'll be doing that, we don't even need to address that until we get a hire.
That's fine.
So we're not going to be having Fortman and Madison fill in until that's not going to be necessary, if I understand.
Until the board decides
Yeah, on
that
a
they
new
are
hire.
the person.
Yeah,
I just
so,
wanted to make sure we knew, okay.
Ms. Melzer will remain in charge of it until this board decides on a new person.
okay.
Thank
And
you.
at that time, the stipend will begin for that. So that's the motion, and we have a second. Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Aye.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Next, we have B, accepting grant from State of Oregon for COVID expenses. Ms. Melzer.
Okay, so we did, as you know, we did apply for reimbursement and we were giving, we're offered a grant to reimburse us for all our COVID expenses. The reason why this is under discussion action instead of consent is because it's a little controversial. So, and Council Huddle is really the one who's going to have to weigh in on this, but what happened is, we applied to the feds. It's the state who actually gives us the money, and they've offered us it via contract, so we have to agree to a bunch of stuff. And some of the counties do not agree with what the state is requesting of us. So we wrote the order to say basically we would accept it, but we reserve the right. Basically in case something happens in the state that we don't have to agree to do everything that was in the IGA. John can really explain it better than I can.
Thank you. So the County Council's organization has been presented with this document, and the County Council's organization wrote a letter. Julie, I can't remember if we put the letter in the packet or not to show the sticking points. So there were several sticking points, but to me, the two main ones were in the IGA, it said that the state could do criminal background checks on the county employees, and that seemed to be totally out of line. And the second one was a venue provision where if we had a dispute with the state over the terms of the agreement, any litigation would have to occur in Marion County, and a lot of the counties didn't want to do that either. And if the problem is if we don't agree to these terms, we don't get the funds. So I was proposing a workaround that we accept the agreement, reserving our right to challenge those provisions, and see if that flies. And so we're gonna put that in the board. Otherwise, the board just has to say, no, we're not going to take this money right now, which is not a very good position to be in. So it would be, the order would say, we approve the agreement, reserving our right to challenge the terms as outlined in, and there's a letter from the county councils up there. So that would be the request.
Commissioner Boyce?
Council Huddle, is that by chance a unified response to, okay, great. That's good work. Thank you.
Anything further?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Boyce, I'm not sure what you mean by is that a unified response. My suggestion is not a unified. The county councils, I believe, are holding out on the other counties are holding out on accepting this agreement until the state changes those terms. And we would be doing a middle ground approach by our order, saying we accept this, reserving our right to challenge those terms.
So Curry County leads, and the state can still refuse based on that approach. Then what are we going to do?
Well, that's up to the state, but the other odd part about this, the background I understood, is two of the largest counties in Oregon got their money directly. They just didn't even go through the state. And I really don't understand how...
That's where the federal government set it up.
I don't understand how the Fed made that decision, but, and I don't think we have that option, unfortunately. So, so the counties are trying to take a negotiating posture. I think we're trying to make a compromise.
I think we want to table this until we see what evolves. I don't know if I would, draw a line in the sand just yet. What's your thoughts, Harry? What would be the risk of delaying for? Which we're not having another meeting until the 15th. But
well, the hard part for me with the position is that I'm
spread.
We're basically turning down money, and the state sort of, because of what the feds have done, they seem to have, he who has the money calls the tune kind of thing. So
it's almost a form. I won't say it.
Yeah,
but they're only asking for two things, out of the norm, and that's criminal background checks, if they require that, and the venue to be in Marion. So I like the language of what you said. We reserve the right to challenge, and that I think a lot of other counties may get on board with when they see that language. They may say, you know what, that's a sensible approach. At least now we can get our money if the state approves it that way, and we still have a legal avenue to get heard on this.
But there's a reason so many counties are bowing their neck, correct?
Just those terms. I think some of it might be because, and no one has said this out loud, but it might be because the two big counties are getting treated different than the remaining
they've already
counties.
got their money.
Yeah, just very strange. And so, and they didn't have these terms. And so we just think it's not being treated the same. And it doesn't make sense to us that we'd have to have a bunch of terms that these other parties don't, so.
So, you know, the requirement for background checks, we do background checks on employees.
Yeah.
Big deal, right? And if there's a dispute, we're not disputing anything. They've already offered to give us the money. We're not disputing it. It's exactly what we requested. So the other thing is I don't want to wait if you want to wait on this, that's fine, but I don't want to wait too long because keep in mind, at some point we close the books. That's in August. We're going to close those books for this fiscal year that ended yesterday. So if we want to accept it and get it into that fiscal year, it's going to have to be done before we close the books.
I don't see a big thing by wording what you said that way. It gives us an out. And again, even if they mandate, I don't like that we're separate from those two counties. I'm a leading voice in those conversations. Everyone should be treated equally, but.
So I'll move.
Mr. Roll?
Could you say something in the letter that you send to them about we feel that we should be treated the same as other counties were treated in this issue?
Well, what we'll do is we'll put it in the very order that the board adopts, so it's the board's, vote and signature on the order saying that, because the state's agreement proposes to treat our county and other counties differently and not treat all counties the same, and it has objectionable terms as outlined in the letter from the county councils, and it came from actually AOC is who the letter to the state was from. Therefore, we will accept the agreement and reserve the right to challenge based on those terms. And it puts the state on notice that, we disagree, but we're reserving the right to fight about it another day if it comes up. It may not even come up.
Right.
That's
No,
the
it may
thing.
not.
Why,
Yeah.
so it's very, very,
It's hard to walk away from this for the county,
yeah.
knowing that there's a slight possibility that it might come up. So.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but you said it well there. There's also money additionally is coming, so the state is doing a little bit of a dance here that we'll give you this little bit now, but we're going to extend this other, and tomorrow at 1:30, District 4 commissioners are meeting with the governor's office, and so I might be able to bring you some good news. I know that we are quite united in the 5 counties. I would support this today based on what you added as a challenge to the state. But I'd also be okay to wait and give the board additional information to see how this thing is proceeding with the second round of funding.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move, Mr. Chair, that we accept the IGA agreement, the grant from the state of Oregon with the discussion based around what kind of council offered in terms of just a notification where we are in this.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
All right?
Chair Pesh,
All right.
motion carried unanimously.
It is 5 minutes till the hour. I think what we're going to do is break for lunch. We will come back after at 1 o'clock and resume the meeting. And we do have an executive session today as well. So I'm guessing at 1 o'clock we'll probably go for 15 or 20 minutes and then go into executive session. So with that, this meeting is in recess.
something about having land and sea. Never having to choose between digging in or looking out. Here, you can go where the spirit or the wind moves you. To the tops of the trees.
All righty, so we're back in session. It is 1:02 p.m. Wednesday, January, listen to me, July 1st. We are going to come back and do our director's report. Ms. Schmelzer?
I don't have too much to report, but I did want to give you an update on Lobster Creek, Lobster Creek Camp, the county park. So about a couple months ago, I presented a slideshow showing all the the weeds that were overgrown and everything that was damaged up there and not repaired. I'm happy to report that the new parks director has been up there and he cleared out with the parks help, and they have everything mowed, everything cleared up. They were able to replace all the rotten boards, so the handrails are replaced. The paths that had boards that you could step through have all been repaired. They did a great job on that. They went up there this weekend as well, and they cleaned up the cabins, which had a little bit of a rat infestation. And he also got a hold of the exterminator to make sure they're up there continuing to do work. And we do have our first family up there, and they are in a sparkling, sterile, probably the cleanest and best shape it's ever been in many, many years. So we're right on track with that. Like I said, like I told you this morning, we have a little problem with some of the water up there, but things are going really, really good at that park. So we're really happy with the work that's been done up there. And I'll just leave it at that. So that's the end of my report.
All right. Commissioner updates, Commissioner Gold?
I just wanted to report that we're continuing with the all-care grants. A couple more have been approved since last I talked to you. And also, just to let you know, the board approved my working with the volunteer recognition, and that's been on hold because of COVID, but I still have all of the information, and we are going to be recognizing our volunteers who put in many, many hours. There are over 200 of them in the county. Some of them have not only put in many, many hours, but years of service. So I think it's important that we recognize our volunteers and don't put any of the volunteers above any of the others, because there might be problems that way. So thank you. That's it.
All right, I have two comments. One is really good, and the other one I'm not sure of. I have this morning received several emails regarding masks, and I know the governor mandated it, and again, I'll reiterate what I said earlier. Some people with health conditions are not mandated to wear masks, and that's why you may see some people out there without masks on. I personally, well, I won't get into my personal thoughts on it. I do believe that I've heard this morning it's going to be challenged in the state, that the governor had the ability to be able to do that, but I'm sure we'll find out later on the courts with that. I want to bring up something that is really, really kind of neat that's happened. I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name, but I had the honor of I went on my wife and I spent a few days last week. We went away, and I had the honor a few weeks ago of meeting a man here named Jack Parnell. He was a Reagan appointee into his advisory board, and then he was a George H.W. Bush appointee to Mr. Bush's cabinet as Secretary of Agriculture. Spent his life in service to this nation. And after meeting him here, we struck up a friendship over a few days. Actually, he had to go home. His wife spent a few extra days here at my ranch, and then he invited me up to his ranch in Idaho, where I spent 4 days last week with him and his family. What a wonderful group of people they are. What a life servant he is to this nation. Sitting there talking to him about the problems of our area and what we deal with, he was very, very receptive. His dear friends with Sonny Perdue offered to call him while I was there, and he's also friends with Secretary Bernhardt of the Department of the Interior. They all have a lot in common. They all stay very much in contact as very dear friends. And he said he speaks with many of them on a weekly basis still. And he is going to look into the challenges that we're facing in the Rogue River and the river down in Brookings. Many of the shortfalls that we have with getting the gravel extraction from our river, the habitat for fish, the hatchery, all of that. He's going to actually get in touch with them and hopefully coordinate with the Corps of Engineers. I'm looking for them. I formally asked them to take a trip here, and we would have perhaps Commissioner Boyce, if he would volunteer, to get on a jet boat.
As long as you go.
Take these people upriver and let's show them the issues of this river, and hopefully have a dialogue to find ways to get this river back in its socket, as the engineers say. I just want to reiterate what a wonderful family and what a life servant he is. And he is actually considering a move out of northern Idaho, and we hope it'll be here in Gold Beach. But I actually told him this as I left. I expect that he will follow through with this. He offered, as I said, to call Washington again while I was there, which I declined. But we have to pick certain things in our term in office that I was elected to do. I picked 2 or 3 things that I would try and get done during my time here. One was the enormous problems that we have in the Rogue River that I know other Commissioner Boyce and others in this county have a dear feeling for getting this river, which is arguably one of the greatest rivers in the world, back to where its status used to be years ago. But I also, wanted to look at the Sheriff's Department and working with the sheriff that I truly 100% trust to run the law enforcement of this county, and I think he could even do more than that if he ever chose to do so. But those are 2 things that I came on looking to accomplish and focus on during my tenure here, along with other small things that have come up, working with Ms. Schmelzer and her, I would like to say, our out-of-the-box thinking that we have, bringing new things out and finding ways to make them happen. So I'm excited about some of the things we're doing. I do believe during my time here that we will get the issues, I won't say all, but I think we will get a lot of the issues that we face in the Rogue River corrected. There are people that love the outdoors. Mr. Parnell, as well as Sonny Perdue and Mr. Bernhardt, are all avid outdoors people, and they understand the weight that the loss of services in our river carry for the county, as well as being lovers of fishing in the outdoors. So I'm very cautiously optimistic that we can get some of these things done during my tenure. And that's all I have. Commissioner Boyce?
Well, Commissioner Pash, you make friends easy and you make good friends, and Parnell is a big name, and I will share your optimism, very much so. I know you've probably seen these, but I just want the public to see, and I think now's a good time with the amount of work you've done on this. I think at some point, for what it's worth, and I could be wrong on this, we're going to need to engage Congressman DeFazio. And you and I may differ a little bit on that, doesn't matter. If we can, we're just going to be that much better in the team concept. And so real quickly here, let's see, Eric just taught me how to do this. Yeah, I don't see the option. Anyway, so we'll do this. These pictures were taken just about a week ago. And to your point, this gravel, I think, is coming from the fires. I'm very familiar with the Golden Ray and Savage Rapid dam removal. I'm not an engineer, but the amount of gravel, I believe, is coming down the Illinois River from both fires. And maybe at some point we'll want to study that and see if we can, maybe we're obligated to somehow prove that for the people that you're talking to and that we're working on. But this is potentially could put As you know, Mr. Chair, Larry Prestizzini out of business at some point, so we share that concern. This is where the jet boats have to come out, even in high water, make a left like they're going out the mouth and then get around this spit here and then head upriver. So that last year, just to show the enormous growth in one season, that bar was coincidentally about the same size and shape, but it was not extended west that extra 150 feet. And a little bit more of an overview here. Just so the public knows what you're working on and what this is all about, and it's, I don't think we can overstate it.
While you're on, sure, if you don't mind, while you're on that slide right there, if you'd move your cursor back right there.
Okay.
We actually have people coming down here between July and September for you to take out. They're from the Corps of Engineers. They're going to look to, in the spring of next year, to remove that entire bar right there, all the way to the bridge. We are supposed to have right now coming in conversations last week with the Corps, a clamshell to clean out the normal port mouth, and they cannot even get it into the mouth of the river. It's too shallow. So they are looking for additional funding, and hopefully that will go next year with it. They're looking for the funding to remove that entire gravel bar.
Well, the bridge would be right about here, maybe a little bit further upstream, but if you're going to start, I agree, that's probably number one. Did you?
I just had a question. Is that as a result of your trip to Washington,
Yes,
D.C.?
through NACO, yes.
Okay.
This is all through NACO.
Good work. Let's see, this is the last one, and that just gives you a little different view. Now, this is a Coast Guard station right here. Jots Resort, just to give you a perspective there. But this is ugly and getting uglier every year. Maybe it's not important to know where it comes from, but thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just a couple other things. Just, we got an excellent COVID-19 report. We're at 160, I think it's 133 days now since the first case was discovered in Oregon. And I just want to remind the public, yes, the masks are a hassle, but it is your responsibility, it's all of our responsibility to try and follow these guidelines, the state guidelines. If you're going to go out camping, limit the number of guests, keep everything clean, keep your distances, and yeah, anytime you can keep the fun outside, can't hurt to harm or make harm to the efforts. AOC, in representing Housing and Community Service in the state of Oregon, come up with a $25,000 grant. Finally, we've been working very hard on this with Coos County, and it's $25,000 towards a housing coordinator. So that's the next step on dealing with, jointly with the housing issues. We're making some really good progress on broadband through Coos Curry Electric, has done some great work, and I'm facilitating just a little bit, trying to bring USDA with John Holman, John Huffman, who used to serve in the legislature, so some good work going there. It's moving slow, but Curry County may be able to lead on that, and so I'm very excited about the progress of that. We're going to have a teleconference here with South Coast Development Council, and former Commissioner David Iston has a lot of experience in this, is a sharp guy, and is willing to volunteer and help with his time. Bureau of Land Management, categorical exclusion, that system, like the Shasta-Agnes project with the late successional reserves, this is a huge thing that the BLM, separate from the Forest Service, has stepped up to play the first time in about 12 years that could really add to wise timber harvest and additional resource there for our mills and our employment. CARES report, I'm going to have more after tomorrow. That's basically all I have now, except that we voted today to slightly change the Director of Operations position, and nothing mentioned on the pay. You know, I believe that, and it was stated by one of the public comments today, that we might be able to do an office manager that is experienced, and you know, I think that's probably the way I'm going to want to pursue. if we had the perfect candidate come along, but they're going to have to know at least somewhat the kind of knowledge and background that Director Smelser has, and otherwise I'm not going to be, in a general sense, supportive of a county administrator or a director of operations. I'm not happy, also in a general sense, with the distance between me and the department heads, and I think over time, the commissioners, I believe, are elected to take that role and take some of the pressure off of the administrator. But an office manager, I think, might be the best way to go. But I'm going to reserve judgment until I see how the applicants come in and what that would mean for this county, and keep my promises to the citizen. That's all I have.
All righty. So at this time, we are going to recess this meeting, go into executive session per 1926602A, consider employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent. 1926602F, to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. 1926602H, to consult with counsel concerning legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. So we will come back into session after executive session. This meeting is in recess. We are striking 11A from our next agenda item, and we will, we're now going on to 11B, new hire road department. Do I have a motion?
So move, Mr. Chair, for that new hire.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Mr. Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes?
Chair Pash,
Aye.
we have a flagger.
There we go. All right, does anyone have anything further?
Just, Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Time for the special meeting on Monday. Could we set that in the afternoon?
It was 1 o'clock.
Oh, it was? No, that's perfect. I'm
1:30,
sorry.
1:30.
That's even better.
Special meeting on Monday at 1:30. It is open to the public, but it will be a brief meeting, so everyone knows. With that, nothing further. We are adjourned.